on NBC6 starts now.
Off the top tonight, Hurricane Irma barreling toward the Caribbean, and with Florida now the cone of concern, Governor Rick Scott has declared a state of emergency for all of Florida. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jawan Strader. Well, it is imperative that we're vigilant in the next couple of days, especially since a lot of the models continue to show that Irma continuing its path west before making a sharp turn towards South Florida. The new 11 p.m. advisory just came out a short time ago, and for more on that, we turn to South Florida's Chief Meteorologist John Morales. John.
Hey, Jawan. So what we're seeing is a hurricane that is very definitely a very strong system that has every chance to continue to be very strong for the next several days, and it could still be intensifying. As a matter of fact, tonight, a Hurricane Hunter aircraft flying in and out of Barbados here. And of course, you know, they do this alpha pattern. They continuously cross several times through the eye of the hurricane. They found wind speeds as high as, at least at flight level, of 151 miles an hour, and the pressure down to 943 millibars. Now, here's the latest satellite loop, and I've added latitude and longitude here. I think it's important. This is the 55th longitude right here, and I'll step on the other side of the screen here so you can see right at the edge here of your screen the Lesser Antilles. So there's Martinique there, and well, folks can't see Guadeloupe quite yet, but as this system is moving closer and closer to the islands, it's now within about 400 miles of the Leeward Islands. But what's important about the latitude here is that we've noticed that it has stopped its dip. Remember when it was moving west-southwest, did that for a good day and a half or two. That has ended, and I'd say that tonight, as we focus on the eye in relation to the 17th parallel here, it seems to be trying to gain some latitude, and that's important that it starts to do that, because if it does not start to gain latitude, in other words, at least show a west-northwest track as opposed to straight west, if it goes straight west, it's going to slam right into these islands, and there are hurricane warnings in effect for them. But what's expected to happen tomorrow, and I'll show that to you in just a second, and as a matter of fact, here it comes, is a forecast for it to start moving towards the west-northwest so that it would skirt through the northernmost Leeward Islands and the British Virgin Islands and then pass a good 65 miles now north of Puerto Rico. That's 10 miles further away from Puerto Rico compared to the 5 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. So things are looking a little up in Puerto Rico, although they just issued hurricane warnings for there as well as in the U.S. and British Virgin Islands.
Looking forward to that, John. Thank you. And many of you out there using Labor Day to prepare if Irma does hit South Florida. Shelves usually stacked with water bottles were bare at several local stores.
Did overnight to meet demand. South Florida spending Labor Day preparing for the potential threat of Hurricane Irma.
Plywood, water, flashlight batteries.
Not time yet to board up, etc., but it is time to get stuff that you should have had on hand anyway.
Miami-Dade Mayor Carlos Jimenez plans to partially activate the county's Emergency Operations Center Tuesday. Top county officials will be briefed by the National Hurricane Center that morning.
We're looking
at the southern and central Bahamas and then somewhere between Cuba and Florida during the day on Saturday. So that would be this weekend. And then, well, we might have to face somewhere between Saturday and Sunday the risk of conditions here that are going to deteriorate. But just how much, it's just too soon to tell. So I had told you there was great consensus up to this point, perhaps even this point in the forecast models. That's the 120-hour forecast point. So why don't we look at what might happen after that? So once again, backing up, we go to the time that we are north of Puerto Rico. The light color here, the whitish color, is the American GFS model. The European model is a little bit further south than there. Here we go in time going forward. And listen, I mean, there's pretty good consensus when you're thinking about a forecast that's 4-5 days out, and you have the center of these hurricanes from the GFS and from the Euro pretty close to each other. There is a pretty good consensus between those two leading global models as we get into Friday, that's Friday and Saturday time frame. It's after that things get really interesting. See that northerly turn, the GFS right up our spine, right? And the Euro just offshore is an extremely powerful hurricane. So that turn towards the north is going to be crucial in relation to us. Will it happen? How will it happen? Well, that's yet to be seen. Here's the factors that are affecting the system. The reason it had been moving southwest and then west is this big blocking area of high pressure, which actually noses into the Bahamas somewhat. And then there's going to be a dip in the jet stream coming from mid-America, actually from Canada, dipping towards the southeast. Normally, this would act as a deflector shield and keep it away from us. The problem is the timing is bad. So this could meet the hurricane just at the wrong time and turning up towards Florida. And that's what we're concerned about right now. What I can tell you is that it is definitely heading for the northern Leeward Islands, and this is a hurricane with a 28-mile diameter eye, which is double or triple the size of many of these islands, sadly. And that means that the eye wall is going to definitely impact not just one, but several of these country or island countries in the northeastern Caribbean, or island territories in some cases. Either way, many places are going to be affected. 185 mile per hour sustained winds as of the 5 p.m. advisory means that the wind gusts reach 230 miles per hour. This is the strongest hurricane ever registered in the Atlantic Basin. I'm sorry, the second strongest, behind Hurricane Allen, which had 190 mile per hour winds. So it is just a beast of a storm moving west at 15 miles per hour, projected path right through the northern leewards. This is Barbuda, this is Antigua right here, St. Martin, Anguilla, St. Kitts, Nevis, all those locations, St. Bart's. St. Bart's is right in the path of this, and so is the entire British Virgin Islands chain, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and then very close to Puerto Rico. But remember, the eye is 28 miles wide, so Puerto Rico will likely see the eye wall as well. Winds gusting in excess of 100 miles an hour, plus a storm surge, which in the case of some of these smaller islands could be as high as 12 feet and maybe 12 inches of rain too. Dominican Republic and Haiti, you need to watch very carefully. And down the road, Cuba, possibly tangling with Cuba. That's going to be important. Does it go into Cuba and lose some strength? Does it then emerge into Cuba, into the Florida Straits, and head towards the Florida Keys? Well, that's what the Hurricane Center is forecasting, but their margin of error is anywhere from Pinar del Rio in Cuba to Grand Bahama. It could be anywhere in that area between now and Sunday. This
for several days now, and the latest from the National Hurricane Center is that it's already closing in on the Virgin Islands, and the forecast cone has shifted a little bit towards the east, but our chances for impact here in South Florida continue to grow, which is why, again, just like Christine, you also mentioned that we shouldn't let our guards down. We should keep them up and prepare accordingly. This is a massive storm in the Atlantic Ocean, and it's just continuing to pound the northern Leeward Islands, closing in on the British and U.S. Virgin Islands as we speak. Take a look at these deep shades of reds, oranges, and yellows. That's where the strongest showers and storms are located. This system is packing winds of 185 miles per hour. And I wanted to show regional radar within the last 6 hours coming from San Juan, Puerto Rico. This is the center of the storm. This is the ring of destruction over here, and it's located about 125 miles to the east of San Juan, Puerto Rico, but the outer band's already impacting the entire island as we speak. Now, as far as the advisory is concerned from the Hurricane Center, we have an update at noon coming in with the position, but the winds still stay the same at 185 mile per hour winds, and it's moving to the west-northwest at 16 miles per hour. The track from the Hurricane Center is calling for the center to pass very close and just to the north of Puerto Rico as early as tonight. 180 mile per hour winds maintain that Category 5 status to the north of Hispaniola on Thursday, and between Thursday night into Friday be located in the vicinity of the southeastern Bahamas, including the Turks and Caicos Islands, as a major storm. Then we move on over to Saturday. It could be anywhere between the central Bahamas and even Cuba, and then by Sunday and Monday, it takes that turn towards the north, but it could happen anywhere in this area shaded in red, from the state of Florida all the way south into central Cuba. And that timing of the front is the key here. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Cat 5, 4, or 3, it's a major storm, and the center's forecast to remain over the warm waters of the Atlantic that are running anywhere between the mid and upper 80s. Perfect fuel, heat, and energy for this system to stay extremely dangerous.
Regarding school closures, to find out if your local school district is closing, please visit the Florida Department of Education website at www.flddoe.org or call your superintendent. State offices in Monroe County are closed today until further notice. State office closures in all other counties will follow the direction of county officials and will be announced as they are determined. I've directed state offices in all 67 counties to be closed on Friday. Every family needs to have a plan. Have a disaster preparedness kit and be ready today. Do not sit and wait. Prepare right now. For details of how to create a personalized plan, visit www.floridadisaster.org/get-a-plan. If you need to fill your prescriptions, do it today. You can fill them early at your local pharmacy so you're prepared. We're working closely with our federal and local partners to make sure our communities have all the resources they need. We are 100% focused on making sure Floridians and visitors have timely information on this storm, and we will continue to closely monitor Hurricane Irma and issue updates throughout the next few days. But I cannot stress this enough. Get prepared. Know your evacuation zone. Listen to your locals. This storm has the potential to devastate our great state, and you have to take this seriously. Remember, we can rebuild your home. We cannot rebuild your life. This is life-threatening storm, and protecting life is an absolute top priority. Let's remember Andrew. I had hospitals back in Andrew. We evacuated 2 hospitals and moved patients south, and then at the end, Andrew moved south, and we had to hand vet patients for hours. So this can be a devastating storm, more storm surge than Andrew, bigger than Andrew, more wind than Andrew. So everybody take this seriously.
Thank you, Governor. And now we have our 2 great senators from the state of Florida, Bill Nelson and Marco Rubio.
The federal government is ready. It's not going to be a repeat of what happened with the federal government 25 years ago in Andrew. Senator Rubio and I have contacted all the elements of the federal government. We've spoken directly to Brock Long, the FEMA director. He is pre-positioning people as well as supplies, although FEMA is quite stretched, as you can imagine, with all that's going on in Texas.
To keep South Florida and Miami in that central track right over Miami, and that would be on Sunday morning. So again, you are taking a look at the latest track from the National Hurricane Center. We'll go over this one more time. We've got Category 5 status holding for the next few hours. The storm will go just north of Puerto Rico tonight, just north of the Dominican Republic, Haiti, into the Turks and Caicos. And then as we get into Saturday, Sunday, that's when that storm will make that right-hand turn. And yes, Miami and South Florida is still in play.
We'll discuss this future path of it. Here is the weather radar out of the National Weather Service in San Juan. And while there's been terrible news coming from the Leeward Islands and into the British Virgin Islands today, and even St. John in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the news for St. Thomas, St. Croix, Culebra, which is this little island here, and all of northeastern Puerto Rico is good. Right now, the winds in Ceiba, Puerto Rico, as well as in San Juan, Puerto Rico, they are gusting to 54 to 55 miles per hour. So in this outer band of the hurricane, the winds are within tropical storm force, but they're not hurricane force. The hurricane force winds really, I believe, are confined to the eye wall that surrounds the hurricane, which right now is over the open Atlantic north of the Caribbean islands and not soon to hit anything else. Because from this point forward, as I zoom out here, there's nothing in its way really for several days, unless it were to take a wobble to the southwest, but that is not in the forecast. forecast, nor is it remotely considered as a possibility, as it's definitely going to be heading in a west-northwest direction for several days, and there is immense consensus about that amongst the computer forecast models as it rounds the bottom of the Bermuda High out in the Atlantic. So here's the loop. Again, some of the islands that saw this, well, you've already perhaps seen on social media some of the images out of St. Martin, for example, St. Bart's, two of the hardest hit places. Barbuda was engulfed by this eye of the hurricane last night. We still don't have news from Virgin Gorda and from Tortola, which also got into the eye wall, or for that matter, St. John in the U.S. Virgin Islands. But again, for the rest, things are not looking that bad. We'll zoom further out and use the satellite picture here, the infrared enhanced satellite picture. It shows you in these orange colors the coldest clouds, therefore the highest clouds up in the atmosphere, and therefore these are the thunderstorms, the hundreds and thousands really of thunderstorms that are part of a hurricane. And you can see just how massive this system is with that very well defined eye. The winds continue to be this afternoon 185 miles per hour on this hurricane, as it's definitely tracking towards the west-northwest. And by the way, and I said this at the onset at 4 o'clock, remember last night, remember yesterday when I was saying each tenth of 1 degree means so much to these islands in terms of whether it's going to be north or south. Well, I tell you what, while bad news certainly came from the northern leewards and the British Virgin Islands, good news has come for the Puerto Rico area, as it gained enough tenths of degrees of latitude to be able to save those islands and not have them see the worst of this hurricane. So this is the advisory. Again, the winds remain 185 miles per hour. It made landfall with winds of 185 miles per hour, making Irma the strongest ever observed hurricane to strike the Lesser Antilles. Strongest ever that we've observed. Maybe one happened in the year 1200 and we did not observe it. But since we've been observing these things in the mid 19th century, we've never seen one this strong strike that area. And the pressure right now is down. It's down to 914 millibars. So it is maintaining strength, possibly intensifying further, believe it or not. That's how strong it is right now. Now, beyond Puerto Rico, the northern coast of Hispaniola is under a hurricane warning. So are the southern Bahamas right now. And there is a hurricane watch for the central Bahamas and for much of Cuba at this hour this afternoon. Coast, here's the GFS and the Euro. The latest runs from both of those systems. You see the consensus that it would be right there between Andros Island and Cuba. Then here we go into the Saturday and Sunday period. They both have the idea that the sharp right turn is going to happen right over the east coast of Florida. So
I don't like to see all those models converging. No. Right over us, but we'll have to wait at least until tomorrow. And we've just gotten word into our newsroom that Hurricane Irma has taken a deadly turn. A member of the French government has confirmed that 2 people have died in the French territories of St. Bart's and St. Martin, and 2 people have been injured as well. In addition, we're being told that the same government official says that communication with the island is just now being restored, so it may be some time before the full extent of destruction left by Hurricane Irma can be totaled.
And Hurricane Irma is slamming the northeast coast of Puerto Rico right now. Take a look at these videos just into our newsroom out of Carolina, Puerto Rico. The island is being hit with winds of 185 miles per hour. The National Weather Service says that Puerto Rico has not seen a hurricane of Irma's magnitude since Hurricane Okeechobee back in the 1920s.
And take a look at some of this incredible video out of the U.S. Virgin Islands this afternoon as the storm leaves a path of destruction in its wake. The storm making its way over the tiny islands just a few hours ago. Video from there earlier today shows a pretty peaceful scene, but take a look at the video from St. Martin. Look at that. That's in the French Antilles east of Puerto Rico. Homes are damaged. Look at the cars underwater there. Boats and debris littering the entire harbor there.
Found it to try to determine exactly where it's going to go. You know, yesterday, for example, you talk about computers windshield wipering back and forth. Yesterday, the European was, in the eastern Gulf of Mexico as far as the center of the hurricane is concerned. And then the GFS, which is the American model, was in the Atlantic near Bimini, east of Florida. Well, today, they kind of both agree. Maybe the GFS is a little bit further offshore, but the European has come much closer to where, to the solution, proposed solution from the ECMWF Forecast Center that this hurricane.
Welcome back to tracking Hurricane Irma. Here we are on the NBC6 News in this special here as we track Category 5, Hurricane Irma. And just a few moments ago, Miami-Dade Mayor Carlos Jimenez had a press conference and he talked about mandatory evacuations in effect in Miami-Dade County.
Miami, and they want us to pass this information to the general public. The threat of a direct impact is more likely, and the window of greatest concern will be pre-dawn Saturday running through Monday morning. So what can we expect to see? Destructive winds, significant, maybe life-threatening storm surge, and flooding rains across the area. And all of the computer models are showing that Irma will be impacting us at some point. But don't focus on your hour-to-hour changes with the model runs or that line in the middle of the forecast cone. It is a large system. So the wind probability forecast is calling for an 100% chance of us seeing 40-mile-per-hour plus winds sustained across the area starting at some point early Saturday and throughout the day on Saturday as well. The probability of us to see hurricane force winds is also increasing. What about wave heights? Wave heights forecast is calling for 6 to 9 foot waves. Some models are going with higher than 15-foot waves.
And to show you right across the street, there's another station. This one's called a Rocket gas station here, and they're open for business. And you can see right here, you've got a line of cars going back up Flagler there. Let's just see how far that goes. Well, it extends about maybe 2 or 3 blocks, but they are pumping gas in South Florida, in Miami, in Coconut Grove, and in Coral Gables at this hour. So that's one thing we wanted to show you. Now we're going to bring the camera back out and swing it over here toward Miami International Airport. The airport is operational right now. There are flights still arriving and departing, and we understand that American, which is one of the big hubs here, their last flight, they're going to get all of these aircraft that are here out of this area by 3 o'clock this afternoon. The last flight, I believe, leaves around 3:49 this afternoon. That'll be the last American flight out, and we are pretty sure that the other vendors here will follow suit. So the airport is operational. When they do close this airport, we'll make that announcement. That's our story here in Skyforce HD. I'm Ralph Rabe reporting live.
And we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Go to a traffic camera right now because we've been talking about people evacuating, and this actually is our traffic camera at I-75 northbound, and I'm not sure if this is just at a standstill, like if the shot is frozen. Okay, so the shot is frozen right here. I was going to say if traffic really is moving that slow, we're really in trouble.
Right.
But there's a lot of traffic out on those roads, friends, because a lot of people who came from Key West or down south in Miami or by the coast are getting out of town to safety to avoid the havoc that may happen with the storm surge.
Okay, here we go. So let's flash that up, and no major difference as far as strength of the system. Wind still at 150, pressure still 927. But there are some subtle differences with the watches and warnings. Storm surge warning extended now from Jupiter Inlet northward to Sebastian Inlet and from Bonita Beach northward to Venice. Also, storm surge watch has been issued from north of Sebastian Inlet to Ponce Inlet. And now the hurricane watch has been extended northward along the east coast of Florida to Flagler, Volusia County line, and along the west coast of Florida to Anclote River. There we go. So some big changes there. Everything else basically the same. Strength of the system the same as well. So
we have at least a little bit of good news. You know, we were talking about if this storm has to go west, we want the storm to go east. If the storm has to go west, we want it to keep tracking farther west. That has happened just a little bit, not enough that we can say anything major has changed with the forecast other than we want the trend to continue to be west. So here it is, just out by the National Hurricane Center, Category 4 winds of 150 right now. The storm will be right around the north coast of Cuba, both at 8 p.m. tonight, 8 a.m. Saturday, and then make that turn up toward us. By the way,
everything up, keep the wind out of your house. As a matter of fact, keep the wind from going from one room to another within your house. So once the hurricane really starts blowing that wind out there, you need to shut all the doors inside your house. So if the wind by any chance gets into one location, it doesn't go from there and elsewhere. And the reason we do that is because once the wind gets inside, it helps push from the inside what's already being suctioned from the outside, because the forces upon a structure when the wind is blowing very, very strongly is actually mostly a suction force. What happens is So I guess I'll make this a house or a wall. The wind hits the side of the house, and it gets deflected above the house. And when it gets deflected, this eddy that forms here, you get a little bit of an eddy suctioning your roof out. It's trying to pull your roof out. That's why hurricane straps were so important. These are things that were installed after Hurricane Andrew, because we found out that many of the homes didn't have the trusses that support your roof. The trusses were not anchored to the tie beams very well. So basically the trusses were just sitting there, or maybe just nailed in, but they weren't strapped in with screws. So the roofs are just blowing off because of that suction force that I'm telling you about. So a lot of the new roofs, a lot of the new construction has the hurricane straps, which basically wrap over the truss, and then you screw them in with cement screws into the cement, and then that really anchors the truss and doesn't allow that suction to pull it off. So that's why you need to keep the wind out of your house, and you should close all the doors inside the house as well. And okay, all right, yes, thank you for that message. We're soon to go to an interview with Acting Director of the National Hurricane Center, Ed Rappaport, and that's going to be done by Ryan Phillips. Oh, we do not have it. Too bad. All right, see, well, live TV during wall-to-wall coverage of hurricanes.
It's okay, John. You've given, again, some incredible information. That's why we like to call him the professor, because he can explain things and to the best of any professor that I know.
Governor Scott just tweeted out that 5.6 million Floridians have been told to leave their homes. Wow. 5.6 million Floridians.
Wow. Your peak gusts in Key West on Sunday early are expected to reach 171 miles per hour in Key West. This is where the National Weather Service office is down there. I know you all are working very, very hard, and we had an interview with the meteorologist in charge down there earlier. I have friends and colleagues down there. You guys batten down the hatches and certainly continue to do your good work in public service of your constituency down there in the Florida Keys. 5 to 7 inches of rain possible for Key West. Marathon. Let's go to the middle Florida Keys. What can you expect in the mid-Keys for Saturday? Arrival of tropical storm force winds mid-morning. These are sustained 39 to 73. Peak wind gusts in Marathon, 177 miles per hour. This occurring early on Sunday as well, and up to 16 inches of rain with the hurricane moving through. Key Largo. What can you expect in the upper Florida Keys? Arrival of tropical storm force winds pretty soon. It's already almost midnight, so your arrival of winds are only 9 hours away. Peak wind gusts in Key Largo could reach 94 miles per hour, and you also can get 16 inches of rain. Miami-Dade County. Let's go through Miami-Dade County here and talk about the arrival of tropical storm force winds. Be pretty much early in the afternoon to mid-afternoon, 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. tomorrow. You have those generally frequent or almost sustained 39 to 73 mile per hour winds with gusts that by Sunday would reach 80 to 90 miles per hour. This actually rivals or exceeds the winds that we saw with Hurricane Katrina in 2005 and Hurricane Wilma for much of southern Dade in 2005 as well. 14 inches of rain are possible in Miami-Dade County, and the risk of significant flooding from rain is high. Broward County. Broward, arrival of tropical storm force winds now delayed 6 to 9 p.m. on Saturday. So you in Broward still have all day to wait for this event to unfold, but I'm going to show you the radar and you'll know why in reality you can't really plan for outdoor fun on Saturday in Broward County. Your peak wind gusts 80 to 90 miles per hour, and that'll be on Sunday as the hurricane is crossing through. This is just a notch below what we saw with Hurricane Wilma in 2005 in Broward County, and a foot of rain is possible. So there's your forecast throughout our entire viewing area here in South Florida. On to the satellite picture, just to show you that this momentary wobble towards the southwest has stopped. So here it comes. And oops, there it goes, right? It's now back on a west or even north of due west track.
These newest models, many of them are new, and one of the things that we can see is that there's pretty good consensus and agreement there that the center is likely to stay in the cone, although there's a little bit of spread there, but it is likely to stay in the cone. The bad news is it's heading for the Keys. The worst of Irma is heading for the Keys. Beyond that, it's to the north there. If it goes a little bit tighter, a little bit further east, it's a little bit quicker. The slower models that make the turn a little bit slower, that means it puts it a little bit further away. Could it potentially go west of Key West at this point? The odds still are pretty low because some of our most reliable models, and this is the GFS, this is the new one that's come in now from that 8 p.m. Model computational cycle, and it has shifted a little bit east. It hasn't shifted so much that we're going, uh-oh, but it has shifted a little bit east, which would make you think that this westward trend in the models has now stopped. So, and then the next cycle, we might see another little shift east, but the thinking would be, of course, with that stopping of that eastward trend now, that the westward trend has stopped. Here is Sunday at 3 p.m. There's the time up there in the corner. The European and the GFS almost on top of each other and going up the middle of the peninsula there. I'm getting a lot of questions, and I know there's a lot of people concerned about I'm on Miami Beach. Is it going to be better on Miami Beach? I'm in Weston. Is it going to be worse in Weston? I'm in West Kendall, Kendale Lakes, Tamiami Airport area. These areas west, is it going to be worse? At this point, it's just too hard to tell.
County, we're talking 50, 60 mile per hour wind reports coming out of this outer band that has moved onshore. The Keys getting a slight break. I don't want to say that they're in the clear right now because they're still dealing with rain, but definitely the strongest stuff is right here over portions of Miami-Dade County. We were watching areas of Pinecrest, many areas continuing to watch for the stronger winds, the lightning. As we zoom right in, notice all of that lightning coming on shore just west of downtown. Heavy rain right there, and we've seen those wind gust reports, 50, 60 mile per hour winds. This is only the start of it. Of course, when you compare it to the potential of what we could see from Irma, we've been watching for 160, 150 mile per hour winds possible. Still, this is what you would get if you were dealing with a very strong thunderstorm, and that's exactly what these outer bands are bringing. So
good morning to you. Thanks for being with us. 7:30 is your time right now. Now that Irma is getting closer towards South Florida, we're now able to see parts of it on First Alert Doppler 6000. I just mentioned this just before the break here. The most powerful radar in South Florida started tracking the storm when it was about 300 miles out, and because it is the only live radar in South Florida, you'll know up to 6 minutes faster about any changes to the storm. And another great thing here is we usually talk about this when it's just a rainy day, another summer day here in South Florida, because you can actually track it right into your neighborhood, zoom in over your street to find out the conditions, but especially with now, considering the circumstances, this is an even better tool.
Now is our opportunity to show off a little bit, flex a little radar muscle. So, you know, one of the big issues with First Alert Doppler 6000 is that we're able to see much deeper into the storm than we ever have been before. We're able to see from one end of it to the other, and I think probably you'll notice behind Adam and Shelley and myself, we've had a certain radar look of Hurricane Irma behind us, the big red blob that we've been looking at for a couple days. Well, this is what First Alert Doppler 6000 looks like, right?
Yeah.
This image is coming directly from Doppler 6000. It gives us sort of a different view of what that outer band is looking like at this point.
And these individual little storms within each band are moving so quickly. When I'm zoomed in, I'm thinking I'm going to try and slow things down.
Yeah.
Because these showers and thunderstorms follow the upper level winds, right? And they are fast from east to west. So these things are hustling through right now.
And so when you're talking, you're speaking about the yellow and the oranges that whip through. Those are kind of the more intense spots.
So you can see kind of like a southwest and northeast orientation of these bands, right? They kind of cycle through, and it's those bands that will mix down the fast winds upstairs and give you those gusts. So Virginia Key, I was just looking this up here, Virginia Key just gusted to 56 miles per hour. So that's way above tropical storm force strength here. So we're already beginning to see the tropical storm force winds working in, and it's with that band. So you notice how that band just worked through Virginia Key, boom, you get the 56 mile per hour wind gusts.
And then right up there, right outside in South Miami, that's where Claudia de Campo was. And that's so safe as to say that little portion, that yellow and orange is what brought down those trees just outside of Pinecrest.
Exactly. And I wasn't able to watch her live shot, but if that's where she was, it makes sense because there's that band working right through, and you can see where the next one is. So we're just going to kind of time these. So the interesting things about tropical systems, you hear, okay, we're going to get winds 50, 60, 70 miles per hour. People think it just stays that way. No, even with a tropical storm, hurricane getting close to you, in between the bands, you can get a break where you're like, okay, this doesn't seem that crazy.
You go outside,
and then boom, it's that next band that mixes those ridiculous winds down from upstairs. The winds are always moving faster upstairs in the environment, right? So you mix them down, that's what does it. The thunderstorms, the rain, it pulls that fast-moving wind down to the surface. Boom, you feel it, and you get some of that damage out there, especially in Miami-Dade County, especially south of Coral Gables in the Pinecrest, Cutler Bay area. So we go from Sunday 8 a.m. and then we move up Sunday 8 p.m. It's right on top of Fort Myers, actually beginning to flirt with Sarasota and Tampa in these areas. Winds are going to be out of the east here, so that's not a storm surge problem at all for places like Fort Myers or Tampa, but it will begin to be a problem here for Fort Myers once we go Sunday 8 p.m. and then several hours later, and then especially once we go into Monday morning, I should say late Sunday into Monday morning, you're going to have that west wind coming into a lot of these locations, pushing that ocean water in from the west. I know it's a lot to wrap your brain around. The timing is everything. The coast is everything, depending on what side of the coast you're on as far as when you get the strongest winds, when the storm surge is an issue. Storm surge, the biggest killer with these sorts of systems. Continue to do it. I'm even starting to tweet out and put them on my Facebook page. You can follow me on Facebook as well. I'm putting those images out. Looks like we just lost power here for a second. We have a generator, so I'll just keep talking. There we go. We have generator power that kicks in as well. So I'm going to be tweeting out what's going on the West Coast as well, because many of you that live in South Florida have evacuated to Fort Myers or Tampa or some of these areas, and you want to know, heck, what's the storm surge going to do for me now? Do I need to move? It gets really tricky, as far as telling people what to do here. Here's the hurricane. I think the best thing to do is probably head north if you have an opportunity at this time, because heading southbound, you're going to start getting into these rain bands and these tropical storm force winds, and that's not going to be a very safe thing to do either. So I feel more comfortable heading north than heading south. I mean, it is a possibility if you're in Fort Myers, not Tampa, Fort Myers, possibly to make that beeline over to maybe Broward County, where, heck, you could be in better shape there.
People out here on the Broad Walk in this area, nobody's out here anymore, and if they are out here, the police come up and down here all the time and they tell you it's time to go. They made the announcements, and they were very serious about these announcements. They told everybody, look, there's a curfew at 4 o'clock. If you're not out here, we're taking action. They don't seem like they're going to be too much trouble for people if they go away right now and do what they're told to do. But the people that kind of kept leaving and then kind of coming back, they were the ones the police have pretty much gone to and said, look, we're going to take this seriously. We're going to have to bring you out ourselves if you don't take yourself out. So at this point, what the curfew didn't do to get people off the Broad Walk, the rain did, because nobody at this point wants to be out here anymore. Occasionally, we're still seeing people like this guy over here doing like a Facebook Live kind of deal, coming out and showing his loved ones around the country or the world what we're seeing here in South Florida. But other than that, it's really just too miserable to be out here. This is
30 to 35 minutes. They will be accompanied by strong gusty winds. Earlier, we got a report of hurricane force wind gust right across Fort Lauderdale International Airport. And now we have another tornado warning This one is for southwestern Collier County. That's Collier County. That tornado was located over Everglades City, moving west at 35 miles per hour. So conditions are definitely going downhill. This will be the pattern throughout the
for the possibility of some rotation out there at this hour. So let's switch to velocities here, and I'll be able to tell you what's going on in terms of velocities with this system and where this tornado might be. And I'm also going to take the lightning off so that I can get a better idea of what's going on here. So we're going to zoom in here, and yeah, you can see as we look at this here, and I'm going to start telestrating on the air for you the possibility that we've got some rotation going on right here. So I'll loop this over the last 15 minutes, and you'll see as we go that looping here that we might have the possibility of a tornado. Right now the warning is until 5:15 p.m. It is a radar indicated rotation with a possibility of flying debris across the area. The severe thunderstorm warning is for north central Broward County. The severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado is actually located right now a little bit further to the west of this location. These things are moving so quickly, Jackie and Jawan, that they're talking about the intersection of 75, Interstate 75, US 27, 9 miles to the west of Sunrise. So actually that makes quite a bit of sense because, again, we've got winds moving in one direction here, so they're moving away from the radar in this location and towards the radar in this location. In other words, we're using the Doppler principle here to be able to tell where conditions are rotating in the atmosphere inside a thunderstorm. And if they're moving away from the radar, we see them in a red shift, and if they're moving towards the radar, we see this green shift here. So basically, we're talking about something that's 9 miles west of Sunrise over the Everglades at this time, and moving further away. Mainly, this is of interest to folks that are driving out there, which is Varadero in Cuba, and the storm surge warning has been extended along the west coast of Florida, including possibly now some of the areas of the Panhandle, because the water could accumulate all the way up there. A hurricane watch now is in effect for the Panhandle. So the Panhandle now, part of what the National Hurricane Center is looking at. As far as the intensity of the winds, right now 125 miles per hour. The pressure reported here 933 millibars. I just saw a report from aircraft that the pressure is dropping, and so I believe the system is going to intensify again. And the movement, which is what you just asked me about, west-northwest at 9 miles per hour, and there you go. There's the 5 p.m. advisory, Cat 3 hurricane, 125 mile an hour winds, and the pressure down to 933 and dropping. I believe the report from the aircraft said 930 millibars. So this thing will intensify over the straits as it gets further and further away from the Cuban coast. And as it does that, and I know Steve is working on the track right now, as it moves towards the west-northwest, it'll be over very warm waters with prime conditions in terms of its environment, not just at the surface because of the warm water, but the surrounding winds aloft are not expected to be a hindrance to the possibly intensifying hurricane.
Bueno, ya casi son las 6 de la tarde, ¿no?
Seguimos en esta cobertura continua esperando a Irma.
Así es. Vamos ahora a ver lo que está ocurriendo en este momento en los Cayos de la Florida. Ya tenemos imágenes en vivo. Justamente esta cámara pues está ubicada justamente en Cayo Maratón.
Bueno, justamente hablando de Cayo Maratón y esta zona, hay otra advertencia más, otro aviso de tornado específicamente en esa zona de los Cayos. Hace un ratito habíamos dado justamente uno, ahora se produce otro aviso de tornado en esa zona y este último va a estar vigente durante los próximos 45 minutos, es decir, hasta las 6:45 de la tarde está ahora vigente esta nueva advertencia, este nuevo aviso de tornado ahí en los Cayos.
Bueno, y también en Maratón ha ocurrido, se reporta un accidente de tránsito, ha cobrado la vida de una persona. Esto es una información de última hora, nos acaba de llegar. El accidente fue en la vía sur de la US 1 y la 98 calle en Maratón. Repetimos, un hombre murió como consecuencia de este accidente de tránsito. Más adelante pues tendremos más información.
No, y fíjate que el detalle fue que el hombre en este operativo de emergencia, que todo el mundo está corriendo, tratando de llegar rápido,
sí,
justamente un equipo de respuesta rápida, de rescue, estaba transitando y bueno, el hombre de alguna manera pues chocaron uno con el otro y bueno, el hombre terminó entonces muriendo. El movimiento que vemos en la cámara ahorita de los Cayos, de Cayo Maratón,
sí,
es precisamente, o le muestra a usted precisamente la intensidad de los vientos. Bueno, dejamos al gobernador de la Florida por un momento y vamos con otra alerta de tornado que tiene Ariel Rodríguez.
Vamos con Ariel, adelante.
Así es, se torna cada vez más seria la situación, tal y como lo decíamos, en cualquier momento podíamos tener nuevos avisos de tornado. Se acaba de emitir uno, está en vigor a través de la porción sur del condado Palm Beach y la porción norte del condado Broward. Está en vigor hasta las 7. Acaba de ser emitido, esto incluye el sector norte, como le digo, el condado Broward, el sector suroeste del condado Palm Beach. Han detectado una tormenta severa capaz de provocar un tornado. Esto en las inmediaciones de Coral Springs, se está moviendo al oeste a 35 millas por hora, así que hasta las 7 de la tarde va a estar en vigor esta alerta. Vamos a acercarnos acá en esta zona sombreada. Acá lo tenemos, de hecho, acá está Coral Springs, acá tenemos el indicativo de nuestro sistema de potencial de ver algo de rotación y acá vemos el cono de trayectoria como lo iba básicamente hacia el oeste. Me voy a salir un momentito para acercarme un poquito más a esta zona para que tenga una mejor idea del potencial de ciudades afectadas y cómo básicamente podríamos estar viendo en esta zona esa peligrosidad, para quitar un poquito acá el color básicamente del tornado. Acá tenemos, básicamente tenemos el área de Coral Springs. Esto es a la altura de la calle Coral Ridge Drive y también cerca de la misma calle Coral Springs. Acá tenemos en este vecindario una fuerte banda de precipitación. Acá podemos ver que el núcleo capaz de provocar ese tornado ya se ha alejado hacia la zona de los Everglades. Sin embargo, todo este sector ahora mismo está bajo ese aviso de tornado, como vemos en el color rojo. Esto incluye la zona de Coral Springs, básicamente al norte de Southgate Boulevard, al norte de Tamarack, lo incluye muy levemente, y también incluye una porción del vecindario de la ciudad de Sunrise, esto a la altura de la carretera 816, la carretera Flamingo Road, también aquí tenemos a Hiatus Road, el área de Riverside Drive. Toda esta zona está comprendida ahora mismo bajo ese aviso de tornado, recuerda, hasta las 7 de la tarde. Y también incluye una porción del vecindario de la ciudad de Sunrise, esto a la altura de la carretera 816, la carretera Flamingo Road, también aquí tenemos a Hiatus Road, el área de Riverside Drive. Toda esta zona está comprendida ahora mismo bajo ese aviso de tornado, recuerda, hasta las 7 de la tarde. La buena noticia es que la rotación, como vemos aquí en pantalla, se está alejando. El centro de rotación se está alejando de la zona poblada y se está acercando a una zona más bien despoblada. Podría estar cerca del Holyland Wildlife Refuge a las 7. Recuerde que en estos casos se recomienda que usted esté en una habitación interior que no tenga ventanas al exterior. Sabemos que por lo menos ahora tenemos las contraventanas y eso ofrece algo de protección. Vuelvo a repetir, se ha detectado un posible tornado, una tormenta severa muy cerca de la ciudad de Coral Springs. Esto justamente moviéndose hacia el oeste, y en estas últimas imágenes vemos como la indicación de nuestro sistema de gráficas está mostrando que el mayor peligro ahora mismo está justamente pasando a través del sector oeste. Ha pasado de la ciudad y se ha involucrado un poquito más hacia el oeste. Esta no es la única alerta que hemos visto. De hecho, hemos visto varias en el transcurso de las últimas horas. Hemos visto por lo menos unas 4. Tenemos este momento acá hasta las 7 de la tarde. Recuerde que ya por lo menos el peligro está pasando porque se está moviendo más bien hacia el sector interior alejado de la ciudad. Pero vamos a enfocarnos en otra que ha permanecido vigente a través de la zona de los Cayos y está en vigor hasta las 6:45. Y esto abarca desde el área de Big Pine, pasando por Cougar Key, también el área de Big Coppice Key y también el sector de Cayo Hueso. Toda esta zona está bajo un aviso de tornado hasta las 7 y está un aviso de tornados hasta, mejor dicho, las 6:45, y todo esto tiene que ver porque tenemos una fuerte tormenta que al ampliar la imagen la podemos ver justamente un poco más hacia el norte. Como vemos, esta área del sector sur del condado Monroe, que incluye el área de Cayo Hueso, y esta es la tormenta que puede estar desencadenando tornados justamente en esta zona de aquí hasta las 6:45. Hemos visto evidencia de rotación en la atmósfera, por lo que, según lo que dice el Servicio Nacional de Meteorología, podrían formarse pequeños tornados, y ellos están citando el área de Cayo Hueso, el área de Bahía Honda, el área de Big Coppice Key, también Boca Chica, el área del Niles Channel Bridge, Spanish Harbor, Boca Chica, que ya lo mencioné, y también la zona al oeste del puente de las 7 millas. Así que todo este sector hasta las 6:45 permanece bajo ese aviso de tornado, y esto no tiene que ver con el otro aviso de tornado que tenemos hacia el norte. Recuerde que es hacia la porción del condado Broward y también condado Palm Beach. Tenemos otras tormentas muy fuertes. De hecho, también tenemos indicación acá de rotación cerquita del área de Homestead, así que no se me sorprendería que en los próximos minutos se active algún tipo de aviso de tornado en esa zona. Volvemos acá hacia el norte. Weston está viendo fuerte lluvia a estas horas a través del área de Rolling Oaks, esto entre Rolling Oaks y también la porción de la 75. Sunrise está esperando un chubasco muy fuerte, también Lauderdale, el área de Fort Lauderdale y también Lauderdale by the Sea. El área de Coral Spring, como le digo, está ubicada justamente muy cerca de ese núcleo. Y como vemos acá, tenemos otros núcleos que estarán llegando desde el mar en el transcurso de los próximos minutos, también afectando a Boca Ratón un poco más hacia el norte. Vemos numerosas descargas eléctricas. Ampliamos la imagen y vemos que todo esto realmente está relacionado con la amplia circulación de Irma, que ya en estos momentos el ojo de Irma está a unas 100 millas de la porción centro de los Cayos y está a unas 110 millas de Cayo Hueso, y ya estamos viendo ese embate. También tenemos a estas horas, al ampliar más la imagen, como todo este anillo de lluvia bastante fuerte comienza a azotar la porción centro de los Cayos, y ese anillo de lluvia fuerte está relacionado con parte del anillo de tormenta tropical y también de vientos de huracán. Acá tenemos el anillo rojo, que es el anillo de vientos huracanados. Como comienza a acercarse acá, está a unas 24 millas de los Cayos de la Florida, por eso ya se está empeorando la situación, y esta es la última actualización, vientos de 125 millas por hora.
To you, if you're in Cutler Bay right now, that you're not going to see a spin up too. So it's everywhere right now. We don't have hurricane conditions, but we've got numerous tornadoes going on right now across South Florida, and this is a particularly dangerous situation because tornadoes are not just radar indicated tornadoes by using our First Alert Doppler 6000, these are confirmed. We've had more than one trained weather spotter confirm that there are tornadoes going on out there at this time. So take cover as these showers and storms move in. Steve, bring back the reflectivity. I just want to show people the strength of this as it's sliding into South Florida. And there you see a very strong pocket of rain and thunderstorm activity coming in on the coast towards Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay. Further south in Homestead, you've got some activity going on. And then down in the Florida Keys, it's just widespread rain with strong wind gusts. Remember, the hurricane force winds in the Keys are only about 3 hours away from arriving at your area, as we see the eye of the hurricane, which hasn't quite left the Cuban coast yet, is still down there. But in relation to Miami, it is past our longitude. We know this thing is not going to take a hard right and make a beeline towards us. So we know we're not going to get into the nucleus of the hurricane. But boy, oh boy, even though we're not going to see that, you can just see how busy this period is going to be tonight into tomorrow. It's just going to be a long slog and danger all around. People, take cover. There's a lot going on right now.
Just a few here at South Point Park at the moment, totally clear behind me. The only people I've really seen coming through are people with pets, really, just to get out of the house, get a little cabin fever, give some fresh air to their cats and dogs and other animals like we saw earlier. The guy came out with his dog and then saved a bird. But I want to show you something that happened a little while ago. The Miami Beach Police Department sent out a couple of officers here to really just kick people off the beach. Get them out of here, get them home, get them inside. And you can see the wind, it picked up a little bit over here. There's some rain over here. And so we actually witnessed officers right back there at the pier at the end of South Point Park over here, right where the beach and the sand meet the water. We saw the police came out and we're just telling people, what are you doing out here? Get out, get out, get out. And since then, the crowds have been a lot more sparse.
Adam, thank you, but I'm sorry to interrupt all the reporters. You're doing great work out there, but as suspected, we just told you that the First Alert Doppler 6000 was picking up on some rotation going on right at the coast near Cutler Bay and Palmetto Bay, and 2 minutes later, the National Weather Service has issued a tornado warning that encompasses a good portion of Miami-Dade County, the southern portion of the county at this hour. And actually, you can see this is pretty down south, pretty far down to the south right now. So let's bring the reflectivity first, Steve. And these are the cooling canals from Turkey Point. Turkey Point is right there. Here's Homestead. And Well, it's the other layer, Steve, the one that that has the coarser radar. Thank you, that one. Yes, precisely. And go into the radar layer, Steve, because you've got. I see sweeps from all different radars there, and I just want my radar because it's better than all the others. So, yeah, you got it right there. Again, this area here, I'm highly suspect of, but this warning that encompasses southern Dade includes all of this area, as several other systems and spin-ups are heading from east to west around that area. But watch out and take cover if you're in Cutler Bay and Palmetto Bay right now, because again, a warning has been issued for that area. And down in Homestead, we have all this heading from east to west. All right, time to update you now on what's going on up north. Let's go to Broward. We saw the tornado arriving at the coast. Where is that cell right now? Where is that dangerous cell at this moment? Well, it has departed the port a long time ago, and it's basically paralleling I-95 and heading towards the west. Let's zoom in further and give some people an idea of towns, neighborhoods, streets. You can see we're talking about Plantation. That's where it's headed right now. Fort Lauderdale, of course, extends far inland too. The appendage is right there, so it's basically crossing 95 at this hour. Bring the velocities back if you could, and we'll see whether we have the rotation right there, or perhaps in another spot at this hour. No, not the row HV. There you go. This might work. Zoom out just a bit, and we'll see what's going on here in terms of rotations. And kind of hard to spot right now. Not seeing a lot of couplets at this hour, but highly suspicious area. Perhaps this is it. We had seen it just to the west of 95. There's a possibility of some spin right there, possibility of some spin right here. There might be more than one right now going on within that warned area of Broward County. So we're talking basically just to the west of I-95 along 441. All this is paralleling 595 heading towards the west-northwest, south of Lauderhill, heading through Plantation and eventually past Davie and on to the west. Again, one after the other, numerous locations in South Florida right now are under a tornado warning, and the rest, those that are not, are under a tornado watch. The hurricane is hundreds of miles away, but we're in that awful right front quadrant that is just making our life impossible right now, with showers, with thunderstorms that are spinning up tornadoes one after the other. And again, watch out for this one, because this one again is a warned on cell that's moving towards the west and soon to continue towards the western reaches of Broward County very, very, very quickly. Back to you guys.
And we're going to go back to Adam Kuberstein in Miami Beach. Adam?
Further here, because there is a down line there that's actually some cable TV line that's going in there, but you can see that a portion of the roof.
All right, we'll apologize for that connection. We're going to take a look at some brand new video into the newsroom of a funnel cloud forming.
Oh, look at that.
Right there. Take a look at that. Now, you've been hearing from meteorologist John Morales talking about these tornado warnings that are coming into our newsroom. This is off of Fort Lauderdale Beach right here, and look at where this thing is headed. It is not headed out into the ocean. It is headed towards Fort Lauderdale Beach, and that's what John Morales was just talking about moments ago. So again, keep it locked right here. This is exactly what we're looking at. And we've been following with these tornadoes.
If you needed a visual, you got it. This is what John Morales has been talking about, the tornado warnings across Broward County and Miami-Dade, and he said that there was an actual touchdown, and here it is. This is your visual, and this is why you need to stay inside and why it's so dangerous out there. And when we talk about the dirty side of this system, such an expansive system, this is what it brings about, these kinds of conditions, including tornadoes.
All right, South Florida Chief Meteorologist John Morales is back now. John?
Yeah, so it's been now confirmed that the radar indicated tornado that we previewed here coming towards the coast in Broward County, we saw it on our First Alert Doppler 6000, and now it has been confirmed by the public that there is a tornado out there. Now, first of all, here's the tornado warnings in effect right now. It looks like the one in southern Dade that we just discussed was canceled. I don't see it on there anymore, but this we'll zoom into this area, and I got to read this to you because it this is considered by the National Weather Service a particularly dangerous situation. Public confirmed tornado. It is a life-threatening situation. The tornado will be near, and you can start, Steve, to put up the reflectivity, please. Near Davie, Sunrise, Tamarack, coming up at 7:20. That's in 3 minutes. All right, Sunrise, Tamarack, and Davie in 3 minutes. Sawgrass Mills Mall at 7:25, and then Weston around 7:30. So at this moment, we're looking at the fast movement of what we already had previewed was going to be a tornadic cell moving from east to west. And again, it was moving right along I-595. And you can see Davie down here close to this appendage. Watch out there. And there's more activity over here. I mean, these are spin-ups. The spin-ups are coming up everywhere. Almost a hook echo going on right there. Let's bring the reflectivity, the velocity on right over Davie. And if we look at velocities, we might be able to see some a couplet there. And let's see. Well, perhaps we do have the outbound and the inbound here, looking at the possibility of rotation right around there. So we're talking between Cooper City and Davie, all this sliding towards the west, just south of 595 here. Bring the reflectivity back, and we'll be able to see what we're talking about. There it is, right there. There you go. There's the appendage, right there. Whenever you see these hook echoes, that's the possibility of tornadic activity. So Davie, yet another city being affected by tornadoes at this hour. So many I can't even count. I mean, it started in western Broward, and since then we've had Oakland Park, Fort Lauderdale, Davie, down in the Cutler Bay and Palmetto Bay area. But this one again, sliding towards the west, confirmed tornado, and this is going to strike other communities very soon. So if we just make a beeline here, loop it one more time, Steve. Let's loop it and see exactly the motion. So I mean, it's almost east-west, maybe just north of due west. So take the layer out completely, and let's see if we can see some of the communities where this is headed to very soon. And folks, I mean, you can find your neighborhood, Pine Island there's Davie. So all these neighborhoods here up to and around I-75 as it heads out this way, and then crossing 75, this is headed straight for Weston, and it's moving very, very quickly, and it's a confirmed tornado. Again, my recommendation to you, and I mean, these things are coming so quickly, is that, you move into an interior room of your house away from windows. Hey, we're simulcasting, and WIOD and YY100. If you are not simulcasting us, you better start. All right, because this is coming quickly, and I need people, if they need to move away from the TV and move into an interior closet, they need to be able to listen to what we're saying here about where these tornadoes are as they move quickly from east to west. So Davie on into Weston, moving towards the west. Watch out, confirmed tornado, that by the public. We know it's there. It was radar indicated. We previewed it to you before it made it to the coast. We saw it on live First Alert Doppler 6000, but now we know it's real and moving towards the west. This is just astounding. I've never done so many tornado warnings in such a short period of time. They keep coming fast and furious. Watch out, take cover. Things are very serious out there right now, guys.
Okay, yeah, and we're so glad you're on top of it. Thanks, John.
I'm sure.
We had visual confirmation of that tornado, which is rare.
Well, yes, plus trained weather spotters that have spotted these. So these are confirmed occurrences of tornadic activity within South Florida. I just wanted to update you on the cell that we know has produced a tornado. It has been seen, it has been spotted, so it's a real tornado, and it's here in Weston. As I said, it would move out of Davie into Weston. It's passing generally south and paralleling I-595, moving towards the west. And as we put this in motion, you can see just how quickly this is only a 15-minute loop. You see how quickly these things are moving? I mean, 15 minutes, it went from way over here, now about to enter the Everglades off to the west. Earlier, the activity was there near Sunrise, but we've got this appendage right here in Weston, and that's where we believe the tornado is at. Is there anything coming immediately towards the coast? The answer is no. Right now, this rain that you see here is just light rain, and the yellow is moderate intensity rain. So I'm not seeing the orange or the reds that would indicate to me that there's a thunderstorm there. Plus, as you can see, no lightning strikes either. So we will actually get a breather. But right now, if you're in Weston, you know you need to be indoors. You need to have taken cover and make sure you're safe from this system.
Your tornado warning until 8 o'clock, Broward County, extension of that.
An extension, so bring back, all right, new tornado warning just issued for Broward County, but off to the west, an extension of the one that's currently in Weston. So basically out into the Everglades, they've extended it out to the west. Just bring back the tornado, no, not that one. I'll discuss this in just a second. The first one, I believe, is the one that has at the top the tornado warnings for all of South Florida. And it's the very, very first frame. Very first frame. This is actually a tornado warning. Well, that'll do too. That works. Off to the north. Thank you. And so this is another one, actually. No, this is another one, Steve. Sawgrass Mills moving west at 35 miles an hour. So it's not the one that's currently in Weston. There's yet another one going on right now, a new tornado warning for one in Sawgrass Mills moving towards the west at 35 miles per hour. So let's take this layer off, bring reflectivity back on. It's probably the next frame, not this reflectivity. I need my radar. Make sure that we get our radar plugged in there, and we'll be able to see what's going on. There we go. So this is the one that moved past Weston. Here's US 27. So we got this one right there. I'm not sure we're looking at the radar that I want. Let's make sure that this is not the layer we want. Get all those radars out of there, and I just want my radar, which is really the best one out there, and we'll be able to see. Thank you very much. Here's the detail that we need. So here's the spin up right here, moving out of Weston, crossing US 27, and of course now heading into rural areas of the county. Let's move towards Sawgrass Mills. Really not seeing a lot there. I mean, it's possible that there's something there, but it doesn't really look like there could be. Bring back the tornado warning layer and see what they're trying to warn upon. Well, it's this one down here. Maybe there's another one over here, but either way, I mean, things are, again, coming fast and furious as far, and here's more beeps. Likely to be another warning right now. It's just, this doesn't stop. It's just one after the other after the other. Here it is, new one here close to the coast. New tornado warning being issued right now. You can see it flashing on screen. Palmetto Bay, past Cutler Bay, extending down into the Homestead area. This is a new tornado warning being issued down in that location. So from our radar up here, here's our live sweep crossing the dangerous activity that's going on. Again, this is a spiral band that's coming in. Remember, the hurricane is a couple of 100 miles down to our south, right? And we're getting these spiral bands coming in one after the other. And within each spiral band, we see these little appendages. And each one of those appendages is the possibility of a spin up. There could be a spin up there. There could be another one. Well, I see so many. Goodness me. There could be another one. Just let it loop for a second, so I can try to locate what. There goes one there. That could have been one right there. Let's see. I see another one there. That one we saw. Here's another one here. So let's bring velocities in, and let's see if we can pinpoint where this tornado is. Obvious signal of a tornado right now. As you can see, goodness me, this is down right now going on within Miami-Dade County. Here's US 1. This is the turnpike, and this tornado is right here in the Kendall area, not far from Miami Zoo. This is spinning around, and this is headed towards Country Walk right now. So we've got things coming in one after the other. So they're saying near Redland, radar indicated moving west at 35 miles an hour. So bring back the radar layer, if you don't mind. And down in Dade County, it's not that radar layer. I keep telling you that I need that. Yeah, that'll work. I mean, is that obvious or what? That's a tornado right there going on right now in Dade County. Zoom in and bring back the velocities again, just to make sure I can pinpoint this. And there you see it. Goodness me, there's the hammocks. There's Gould's down there. And let's see, here's the turnpike. So this has just crossed the turnpike now. It's headed right for the Country Walk area of Miami-Dade County. I keep repeating this in case you're tuning in right now, but I mean, if this is headed your way, and there are so many going on right there outside right now, best thing to do, just to be safe, folks. I mean, don't be near your windows. Get away from the windows. Hopefully, if you lived in a mobile home, you evacuated, because that, mobile homes don't stand up to these things, all right? They're just the weakest possible structure you can imagine. So again, I mean, we've got a tornado, radar indicated very, very clearly, more than likely, given so many that have already touched down today, confirmed by weather spotters, this is more than likely a real tornado here just to the west of, zoom in further, let's see if we can get some of the streets and take out the layer of the velocity. And so 3 Lakes there, that's a community. Oh, Tamiami Airport. So there's Tamiami Airport, there's Country Walk. And again, it's right there, just to the east. Here, let's go to the Turnpike, further to the east. So here's the Turnpike here. So it just crossed through Richmond Heights. It's moving through the 3 Lakes neighborhood. It's going to pass very, very close to Country Walk. And now we can bring back that spin up in the reflectivity, or either or will work. There it goes. It's right here. This is the tornado right there. So if our radar is sitting up here, there goes the sweep. Our radar is sitting up here in Miramar, right? And the winds are moving away from the radar. So we have a red shift in the Doppler principle. And over here, we have the green shift. So it's moving, the air is moving towards the radar on this side, moving away from the radar on this side, and the spin up is very, very clearly located right there. So take cover if you're in Country Walk right now or anywhere near Tamiami Airport. There's definitely a tornado there at this hour. And let's give people a more broad view here so that we can see the whole situation as far as what's going on in all of South Florida. I mean, this is just breathtaking, and it's hard to keep up, folks. Thank goodness Steve is here lending a hand, because each one of these bands is just bringing dangerous weather into South Florida. And you can just see all these red areas. There's more coming. There is more coming from the east, and I don't know how many times I'm going to have to break in here, but it's very important that I try to pinpoint down to the neighborhood and street level for you so that you know where these tornadoes are based on what our radar can do. I mean, you know, I know you've seen our promotions 18 million times on TV. You're probably tired of them, but now you understand why this tool was so important. We really needed a tool like this in South Florida, and we finally have one with the ability to see down to street level what's going on. But watch out. I mean, I'm telling you, each one of the, I bet that's a tornado way out here too. Right there. I bet that there's one right there. I can see it. I can plainly see it on the visible reflectivity. Offshore, sliding towards the northwest. I bet when this thing gets to the coast, it could have a tornado too. And this one seems to, there it is. This one seems to be headed, let's stop the loop now. Stop it. This one right here, it's offshore, and if I look at the motion properly, folks, this is headed right for either Key Biscayne or downtown Miami, if it survives between now and then, all right? Sometimes these spin-ups don't last very long, but there's one right there, and I think it's going to spin towards the northwest and possibly towards Miami very soon. This could be one too. Every one of those hooks, every one of those appendages could be a tornado right now. This is a very active situation, and anywhere that you're watching or listening right now, you need to be aware of the weather that's in your area and take cover and be sure you're in a safe place in your house, because the winds from each individual tornado, they're very tiny, but they're much stronger than the winds that we're seeing to tropical storm force. So, I mean, you know, yeah, great. We had a gust to 70 miles an hour earlier at Fort Lauderdale International Airport, but one of these tornadoes could have winds of 110. Or 120, and then that's a whole different ballgame, because that's when you start to get serious damage. So numerous tornadoes going on right now in South Florida. More than likely there's been damage already caused by these tornadoes, so you need to watch out for what's going on, and we'll continue to monitor the radar. I mean, I know I'm wreaking havoc with the flow of the show here because we continue to interrupt reporters and interrupt you, Jawan and Jackie, but obviously, I mean, you know, with our ability to pinpoint down to the neighborhood where these spin-ups are going on right now, we can tell people to take cover. And we can save lives, and that's the whole idea.
Well, that's
John,
what it's. Yeah, that's what it's all about, John. And we, a few questions here for you. Yeah, and I know you have to get back to this.
If I can catch my breath. This
okay,
is just nuts.
Go ahead. Take your breath right now.
No. I'm here. I'm just you ask, and I try to breathe, because this is just absolutely.
I was just going to say,
nuts.
don't apologize. The reason that we're here is to inform our viewers, and if we have this kind of capability, then we really need to use it. My question was: is this what we're seeing now? All of this activity, tornadic activity, is that related to the dirty side of Irma?
Absolutely. You know, we're seeing what being on the bad side of a hurricane is all about, and I mean, I've been emphasizing. I mean, look how far this thing is. It still hasn't moved off the coast of Cuba. And, you know, I hate to say this, but you know how many hours of this we have left? I don't know if I'm still alive tomorrow afternoon. someone needs to buy me a drink.
Okay, you got it,
We
John.
can do that. We can do that because we're going to need one too.
Because this is just about as fast and furious and a 90-minute period I've had on TV. I mean, yeah, we've tracked many hurricanes, but I don't ever recall seeing so many tornadoes in such a short amount of time, and they're still happening. Again, each one of these could bring a new one. So please, folks, you know, if you're watching or listening, Broward, Western Broward is the only spot of concern right now. Eastern Broward, you're taking a breather. But Dade, man, there's a lot of activity coming into Dade right now, and each one of those could have a spin up. So, you know, time to take cover, time to be aware of the weather, and time to continue to watch us here on NBC6, because this radar is just doing wonders for us in terms of being able to get the warnings to you right away.
Now, John, right now, because I have some concerns myself, because my family lives in Davie, my mother-in-law lives, and my father-in-law, they live in Country Walk. Okay, so if they're taking refuge right now, they're going to somewhere safe inside the house. If they take the app with them, will they be able to see on the app with First Alert Doppler 6000 down to your neighborhood? Exactly how does that work if they take their phone with them or the radio with them? Of course, they can listen to you.
Right.
So how can they do that?
Right. I mean, the app is great because you zoom in on your smartphone and you can find the neighborhood that you need, and you've got our great, fantastic radar that today really proves its worth, so that you can zoom in and find the neighborhood that you need. So that's really, really useful. And I'm really, really hopeful that our radio partners have been simulcasting all this, because Y100 and WIOD, I'm calling you out again, because the simulcasting has been very important right now. While these folks, if they needed to move away from the TV to be in a safe room in their house, well, I wanted them to take the radio and be able to listen to me and tell them where these things are. So, you know, make sure you're doing that and keeping people safe. Back to you guys.
Okay, thanks,
Right.
John.
Yeah, I know he wants to get busy and check out more, you know, where those storms are going and everything else.
He's been talking about this First Alert Doppler 6000 for so
Yeah.
long, and now we're seeing
Now we get a chance to see what it can
does.
do. Reporter Chris Fisher, he is around that area where there's damage and downed trees there and some damage to some homes.
We're here in Cutler Bay at the intersection of 127th Avenue and Southwest 188th Terrace, and there's substantial damage. We have downed trees, fences, this tree up into a power line, and this home really took a lot of brunt of it. A downed fence, pieces of roofing, but as you walk down the street here, just limbs and trees everywhere. Trees split in half. That lighting down from the power line. And that's not just this street only. On the other streets, residents we spoke to believe at 9 o'clock this morning it was a tornado that came ripping through this neighborhood. Now that is unconfirmed at this time. We've reached out to the National Weather Service. They'll have to send out a team to confirm that, and once we find out that information, we'll provide it to you. But check out what one resident saw.
I saw the trees in the window. They were just shaking. I thought they were all gonna bend. It was crazy. And I heard them. I didn't hear the cracks or anything like that, but then I came out here like 30 minutes later because I was staying inside. I was scared myself. Everybody was scared. And we see this tree being uprooted. Then we see another one down the block, half broken. I didn't know it was a tornado at first, but then my neighbor or my friend's neighbors, they told me there was a tornado.
Now, out of the residents we spoke to, we have not heard of any injuries in regards to this potential tornado that touched down. But like we can see right here, power lines down. Folks, please be cognizant and careful when leaving your home. Wait till after the storm to assess the damage of this situation. That is the recommendation, not only from us here at NBC6, but from the state, from the governor, Rick Scott, as well. We're going to have much more coming up here from Cutler Bay. Reporting in Cutler Bay, Chris Fisher, NBC6 News.
Yeah, from Cutler Bay, that was where one of the tornadoes was reported, and this is the other one, Fort Lauderdale Beach. This is another perspective of the tornado that we've been talking about that really was creating some havoc, some panicked people when they saw this. This is new video that we're just getting into the NBC6 newsroom of that tornado.
Yeah, you may remember we were showing you this a little bit earlier, that video of the funnel cloud, the tornado, as it was out making its way towards Fort Lauderdale. And that's what John Morales was just talking about a little bit earlier. This is just one of many that we have heard from meteorologist John Morales around town. Now, he is coming back in just a moment. I see him making his way back to the weather set. And of course, he's going to probably give us an update on some of the tornado warnings that are going on around town.
But right now, I just want to,
and also,
I guess you just tossed to me and I didn't realize it. Yeah, listen, I just want to update people on where the tornadic cells are at. Is this live? That wasn't live, right? That picture?
Oh no, that's
No,
video.
that
of
was
the,
video.
of the tornado on Fort Lauderdale
The one in
Beach.
Fort Lauderdale.
Oh yeah, the one that we
Yes.
previewed before it was even a tornado warned cell. Indeed. Hey, I just want to bring people up to date because I mean we had seen that tornado very clearly on our radar in Country Walk, and it probably had moved through Richmond Heights. So we're back in that area. You can see that there's more coming inland. There's downtown Miami. Here's Key Biscayne right here. Very, very heavy squall moving through. This is slid into Coconut Grove, down to Coral Gables, and then we look over into this area where the showers and thunderstorms continue to be quite strong. So let's see if we can still spot the tornado, which was very clear on the velocity. Earlier we had seen the couplet down in Country Walk. So let's switch to velocity on our First Alert Doppler 6000, and we'll be able to see whether I suspect down here. Well, let's see. Yeah, there we go. Possibly right around here. Let's go in here and let's see if it's still there. So from, goodness me, this still appears to be right in that area. Might be a new one moving towards the west. I don't see another one off to the west, so we're still looking at the possibility of more tornadic activity going through that area of Country Walk. And then the one that was up in Broward that had departed the Weston area, remember, that one had crossed through Davie, had moved through Weston. We can probably slide up there and see what's going on with that one right now, just to make sure that we are safe and we can give the all clear in terms of it's out in the Everglades, and there it is. Plain as day. Tornado right there, spinning around, moving away on this side, air moving towards us on the opposite side. This is spinning around, and you've got a tornado, thank goodness, right now over the rural area of the county and moving away from Weston. Probably another one down here, but I bet a new one just spun up there. So we got one out of south of I-75, other one north of I-75, but these are both out in rural locations. So as far as the tornadoes that we know about and the tornado warned areas that we know about, one down by Country Walk, another one here that moved out of Weston. Is this a new warning coming on? This could be a new warning. It does appear like it's a new warning being issued in rural Broward, but it does include I-75. Hopefully nobody's driving through there. But again, I had just shown you, if you bring back the velocity, and let's see if the velocity falls smack in the middle of where this warning has been issued, and it does. It's such an incredible tool that we can show this to you before the warnings are issued. It's just fantastic. There it goes. There's a tornado right there. Right now, there's a tornado going through rural Broward County, sliding towards the west. You can actually see the spin right there. Nobody lives out here, but there's a tornado there happening right now at 7:50 p.m. On this Saturday evening as Hurricane Irma is down by the Cuban coast. So maybe one last look, Steve. We'll zoom out, show you what's going on overall with the reflectivity, just to give a general idea of what else is coming. So we have that one out in rural areas of the county. For the rest of Fort Lauderdale right now, except for maybe Hallandale, things are pretty quiet. This is mainly light rain coming in, but from Aventura down through North Bay Village, further south through all of Miami Beach, further south still into Key Biscayne, inland into downtown Miami, Little Havana, parts of Allapattah, further south through Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, all that activity sliding to the west with more coming, sliding in from the east-southeast and moving towards the northwest. And then down in the Florida Keys, we've had several tornado warnings for the lower Florida Keys as the hurricane's eye is way down here, picked up by our First Alert Doppler 6000. And, you're not seeing it more clearly because it hasn't quite left the Cuban coast. It's been spinning down there for quite some time. Once this starts to move closer to Key West, it's going to fill in. We'll see the entire eye of the hurricane very clearly, but that's where it's located, and it kind of seems a little bit stalled, to be honest, as far as its movement over the past couple of hours. But again, each one of these bands brings danger as they come in with showers and thunderstorms, but the most dangerous one is the one that's affecting right now the area of Miami-Dade County as more cells come in from the east. That's it, guys.
And John, real fast, you talked about the dirty side of the storm. How relatable is this to Wilma?
Yeah, good point. Wilma very definitely passed to our west. It was moving from southwest towards the northeast, and it put all of the Florida Keys, Miami-Dade, and Broward on its dirty side. And there was a part of Broward that saw the eye wall and actually had the calm inside the eye, because the eye clipped parts of the metro area of Broward County as Wilma slid from southwest towards the northeast, and that eye got into Broward County. So yes, it's a good comparison in that sense, although I worked Wilma. I was in this building, but working for Channel 51, and I don't recall the enormous amount of tornado warnings that we have seen just tonight, and it's beeping again, and we're going to get another one. Steve, bring the tornado layer here. There it is. So we had shown you just offshore the area near the coast of southern Broward. So I had mentioned Hallandale, I had mentioned Aventura, and we had weather moving in there, and now a new tornado warning has been issued for those locations. This is just nuts. I mean, it's just one after the other. So closer, let's see, slide this gradually this way so we can see it more clearly. There you go. Thank you very much. So there might be something right there. Again, always look for these appendages. Let's see the velocity, and let's see if that shows up any evidence. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, so near Hallandale, moving towards the west at 30 miles per hour, radar indicated. Again, I mean, you look for the couplets, right? So we're looking at air moving towards our radar and air moving away from our radar. So the tornado is generally right here. This is where the tornado is. So Hallandale, exactly, that's where the National Weather Service is indicating. So we're talking about the border between Dade and Broward counties. And there could be a tornado, certainly radar indicated tornado right now, going on right here to the west of A1A, south of Hallandale Beach Boulevard, and north of Ives Dairy Road. There's something spinning right here with the velocity out and the velocity, the velocity in and the velocity out in the other direction, and sliding towards the west. So again, more tornadic activity. Several tornado warnings are in effect right now for South Florida, and each one of these bands continues to bring activity into our area. There's the radar again, and you can see down to the south more activity towards Sunny Isles Beach, Bay Harbor Islands in Miami, North Miami Beach, North Miami, Bay Harbor, just one after the other. Watch out, because you never know when these things are going to spin up. Again, new warning just issued.
And as a matter of fact, just a couple of minutes ago, we got one right above us here in Miramar.
That's why our phones are going off. Downtown at the Intercontinental Hotel, where they have seen some bad weather there. Stephanie.
So, Joanne, we kind of pulled up here because we just wanted to kind of regroup and see where we could find a safe place. And management has been really nice to allow us to park our news unit. So we're parked underneath the covering. Ed Noel, my photographer, just panning up so you can see we are in a safe place. I'm going to take a look through the glass of the front entrance. You can see they were taking some precautions here. But people inside are there, out-of-towners who kind of found themselves here because of the weather conditions, maybe canceled flights, etc. So they're in there, and I'm going to take you on a little walk because I think it's safe enough just to give you a look at the weather situation, to bring you that reality on the screen. But we know we're safe because of where we are located. So again, we're underneath this covering. You can see that wind really picking up now as you come with me live, and I'm going to take you to the edge here. This is where the bay is. It's a little dark, but you see the rain coming down. We've watched this weather change by the minute here, and Ed's a little shaky as he's following me because the winds are really high, and this is just another warning to anybody who at this point hasn't realized how serious and volatile the weather situation is. Just look at the changes here. I can literally see the wind because of the rain. You could see, maybe not through the television, maybe not through the lens, but with my own eyes, I could see that wind and that rain. It's moving that way. And you can see my jacket just moving as I'm walking out here. So that bay, if I try to walk any farther, at this point the wind is pulling me back. So not too far, just feet from the hotel. Ed, show them just how far we are. We're not far at all. Feet from that hotel where we do feel safe. Out here, we're absolutely vulnerable. So when I was talking to management here, they said this is why they decided not to evacuate, because they said, look, You see that weather picking up. Come back over here. So let me take you back underneath the covering. So management basically saying this is exactly why we didn't evacuate. When we were looking at the forecast, we knew how bad this would be, and we didn't want to leave people stranded. A lot of hotels in the area, downtown Miami, Miami Beach, North Beach, have evacuated. But this hotel has decided to remain open to people that were already checked in. So they're not taking any new clients, no new guests, but they are remaining open. And let's come back up here to people who were already checked in, and they're also open for their employees. Interesting. Employees that didn't feel safe at home actually brought their family members here. That's what the manager told me just minutes ago. And they've actually given rooms to their employees and their families because, look, they know how dangerous it is out there, they say, and they just want to make sure everybody's safe. So we're going to hang out here for a while. We're actually going to go inside, and I'll bring you inside when we come back here live. We're going to talk to some people about what they're thinking as they're watching this crazy and unpredictable weather right outside their hotel.
And very unpredictable indeed. And be safe out there, Stephanie. We got a good example of just how strong those wind gusts can be. Just taking a look behind you. Great job explaining that.
And you got to give it to the Intercontinental Hotel as well, offering their employees shelter in the hotel. They did not evacuate the hotel, and they said to their employees, if you don't feel safe in your homes, you can come on down with your families and we'll give you safe shelter, and kudos to them. We're going to move now to Coconut Grove, very close to downtown Miami where Stephanie was at. And look at that. It's coming down hard now, Dan.
Jackie, what a difference just 30 minutes makes. My photographer Steve Payne and I were actually standing right next to the marina when John Morales on the air said he noticed what looked like a squall passing Key Biscayne and heading towards Coconut Grove where we were. When we looked out in the water, that's what we appeared to see as well. So we took cover, moved our vehicle, our news vehicle, and ourselves to the other side of Miami City Hall, historic Miami City Hall. That's what I'm looking at right now. So the winds and the rain are actually more fierce than appear on camera because we're getting blocked by a building. You can imagine standing right out there by the water. And as of 30 minutes ago, there are at least 24 people out here looking and taking pictures of this storm. They're coming up to us, asking us what we thought about it. We told them, go home. You have no business being out here right now. These winds are very fierce. I got my wind meter out. I put it away. It's clocking winds about 26 miles per hour, but it was an hour ago. These have to be double what they were just 1 hour ago. Steve, you can zoom up to the flag right here behind me. You can see this American flag flapping in the wind. And again, where we're standing, we're being blocked by a building. We're also noticing loud noises and explosions of green and blue lights in the air. Those are transformers blowing throughout the area. So not one, not two, but we saw it 3 different times. But if you look behind me in the distance, some of these high rises still have their lights on. Some of them do not. And over to my left, which you can't really see right now, was a full view of downtown Miami. Some of that is in the dark now too. So we know that transformers are blowing throughout the area. We are seeing it. On the way here, we noticed lots of trees covering the roadways, some trees laying on power lines. So very dangerous situation out on the roadways. I'm coming in closer now to City Hall because I feel like the winds are definitely picking up. If you go to my Twitter or my Facebook accounts, you can actually see the boats thrashing in the water. Some of them, a catamaran just to my left, is actually hitting the seawall. So that's the situation in Coconut Grove. We'll send it over to you now.
Yeah, this is John Morales. I mean, certainly you've got that squall moving in there, and it's really, really busy across the Coconut Grove area as we zoom out here. So here's Key Biscayne, and here's the area where that broadcast was just being made from, right down here in the Grove, and you can see just how strong that shower and thunderstorm activity is right now in that location. Also, up to the north, as we look towards North Miami and further in, I mean, all the way past the Sweetwater area. Here's the Tamiami Trail. You can see just how busy it is. This whole feeder band here is bringing copious amounts of rain with strong winds, as just shown in that live shot that we just did from Coconut Grove. So here comes our radar sweep, again, updating live what's out there right now. And I believe we only have one tornado warning left. So let's try to go to the tornado warning layer, and we'll be able to see what's left out there. there. We've got the one that was issued for the area of Hallandale Beach. So we're going to focus in on this area and we're going to bring the reflectivity on and see what type of situation we have in terms of the showers and storms. So here's Pembroke Pines. We know that Hallandale's right down here. This is really bordering or hugging the Dade County line and moving towards the west. We're sitting right here. Our studio's right under that radar dome right there. Let's see if velocity shows any hints of possible tornadic activity out there as we look for these couplets using the Doppler to be able to see what's going on. So as I look around, there might be a couplet right there. Right there. This is a suspect area, Steve. So let's zoom in here. This is actually just south of the county line. This is in Miami Gardens. Here's 441. And let's see if I can situate myself. Here's I-75. And as it feeds into the Palmetto. So this is the Palmetto. Here's Miami Gardens, 441, 95 going off to the east. And this right here, suspect area near Southwest 41st Street, again straddling. This actually is, if I look at the county line, this actually could be in Broward. Either way, Ives Estates right there. This is moving quickly towards the west. Let's take all layers off and maybe we can situate ourselves in terms of, oh, there's what's it called these days? Hard Rock Stadium. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's had so many names I can't keep up. That means that North Perry Airport is not far from here, just off to the north. There it is right there, North Perry in Pembroke Pines. And we're talking right in this area. This is where the tornado is spinning. Bring back the velocity and we'll see the couplet. There it is, right there, crossing the turnpike. That's the turnpike right there, Lake Lucerne, and it's near the turnpike where the turnpike starts to head towards the west again. So the west and north in that area. So Lake Lucerne, this tornado moving towards the west, at least radar indicated tornado in that spot right now from the one that had come on shore near Hallandale Beach not too long ago. Still living, still moving through this area, sliding towards the west. As I told you several times, interior room, away from windows. Call those radio stations until they start simulcasting us, okay? Because I want you to, if you can't watch me, I want you to hear what's going on and know where these tornadoes are going on. Again, these are moving towards the west at this time. All right, back to reflectivity. Bigger picture, make sure that we don't spot anything more that might be suspect. So we bring back the reflectivity, zoom out, and you can see that the heaviest activity right now is most definitely in Dade, but as far north as the county line with Broward. So this feeder band is the one that's giving us trouble right now. It extends across northern Dade as our lights start to flicker here. Again, we're sitting right here, so we're probably getting clipped by the northern end of this feeder band, which means business as it continues to slide in from the east. From downtown Miami all the way past the county line into Hallandale right now is just big squall line with big time winds. Rain falling sideways right now with tropical storm force winds, and embedded in all that, we more than likely have tornadoes like the one I just showed you near Lake Lucerne moving towards the west. I don't see necessarily other appendages offshore. Steve, just to be safe, and make sure that people are safe, we'll do the velocity again and examine this area here. And again, there's a possibility of something there too. Again, we might have some rotation going on right down here. It's possible that we have something going on there as it moves towards Miami Beach. Just too numerous to, tell you that any one neighborhood is safe right now from seeing an incoming tornado that might be moving at 50 or 60 miles an hour as it spins around in these bands. Let's head out to the east just a little bit, make sure there's nothing else behind it. And there's one right here. There's one right here. Another one right there. Bring back reflectivity, please. And let's stop the loop and see how far this is offshore. Yeah, so it looks like there's something right there, and this also is heading towards the west. So again, just one after the other. Folks, it's about as busy a hurricane night, even though the hurricane is 200 miles away, as we've ever had. And they're just coming one after the other. So we'll wrap this up for now. Go look at the radar in detail, make sure there's nothing else coming, and make sure we warn you and keep you safe. Back to you.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need. Okay, John Morales, and you can interrupt us anytime. We will not take offense. The first and most important thing is the site, and that's exactly where we are located right now as this system moves away from Cuba towards the Keys and into the western part of Florida. This is what we're getting right now, and according to John, we're going to be feeling the effects of Hurricane Irma for a good 18 hours.
Yeah, you know, it's pretty incredible too, because John was talking about Hurricane Wilma, and he was making the comparisons. But he said with this, he said that he had never come across so many tornado warnings in such a short period of time. And with that said, I do see meteorologist John Morales walking back again to alert us with some more information. John, are you ready?
Yeah, I mean, there's just no rest, because they're just one after the other, and we've got another one as warnings continue to be issued. And let's make sure, Steve, that this is the only one right now, because I keep hearing bells and things going off in the background, and I want to make sure that across our viewing area, and why don't you pan so that we can include the lower Florida Keys, where there's been several tornado warnings too. Just want to make sure that they're not currently one, they're not, so that's good. Reflectivity now, big picture, see what's going on out there in terms of the tornado activity. And there you go across Miami-Dade County right now. This is the band, the feeder band, that we've been quite concerned about. It's feeding in from the east as it rotates around the hurricane, which is way, way, way down there. You know, the tornado, I mean, we're talking so much tornadoes that I haven't been able to address the hurricane, but this hurricane has taken its sweet time to get off the coast of Cuba. It's good because it's way past our longitude, so by the time it turns north, it's not coming here. But nevertheless, there is going to be damage, because there's been so many tornadoes this evening that it's just, and confirmed tornadoes, that we know they've hit the ground. This feeder band is trouble, folks, and it's still rotating around, affecting many areas of northern Miami-Dade County and southern Broward County. So, as you can see, and we'll start zooming in here to look at the area of Aventura, Miami Beach, into Miami Gardens, because the tornado, or possible tornado, that had been detected earlier near Miami Gardens straddling the county line, I suspect that is now still present but moving towards the west. So we'll change to velocity, make sure whether we look at any possible couplets out there that might be going on right now in terms of activity. And as you can see, there is a suspect area still located right around here, with the wind moving away and towards the radar here at the same time. So we're talking about Miramar and not far from Pembroke Pines. This is actually right close to our station, as a matter of fact, as it's moving towards the west. So possible tornado in this area right now as it slides towards the west. We'll take the reflectivity now. Actually, no, good. I'm glad you did that. Let's spin it around a few times. And of course, it gets really confusing here. So, you know, folks, when you're using Doppler, you have to realize that if my radar is sitting right here, right? And what Doppler does is, let's see if we can explain the Doppler principle. What's the best analogy? You know, when you're standing at an intersection where there's a railroad crossing and the train is moving towards you, and say the train blows, they blow the whistle of the train, and you hear that whistle at a certain pitch, and then the train passes you while it's blowing the whistle. The minute it passes you, the pitch of that whistle decreases. So it might be high. I'll just do it. You know, say it's once it goes past you, it sounds different, right? The reason for that is the sound waves, as they're coming towards you, because the train is moving, the sound waves are getting compressed. So the frequency changes. The wavelength of that sound wave is compressed as it's moving towards you, because the train has velocity, so it gets compressed. But once the train moves past you, the sound wave gets stretched out, and the wavelengths are longer, and therefore the frequency is different, and it sounds different. That's the Doppler principle in a nutshell. So with our radar, we're sitting right here. Here's our radar. The overall situation is that the winds are generally coming in from the east, and we're seeing all this green right here up and down I-75, because this is where the air is moving from east to west. But then you get immediately past our radar and it changes to the opposite color because it's moving away. So this air is moving towards us, this air is moving away from us. So it doesn't mean necessarily that there's a tornado here and here and here and here. It's just that that's where our radar is sitting, and when we're using Doppler, that's what it's going to look like, because the green is air moving towards us and the red is air moving away from us. So back to the tornadic activity. But I thought it was important to explain that right now so you can understand how Doppler works. So we're concerned about this area over here, pretty much getting close to our station right now. And we can see a bit of a couplet right there, and we were worried because this is the area that earlier had been way over here in Miami Gardens, right? It was near 441, and that has moved all the way over here, very close to our station right now. So if you are in Miramar, there's a risk of tornadoes for you too. Big picture again, back to reflectivity, just to point out to folks that as we look to, well, don't take reflectivity just yet. There might be more activity right here as it moves in, as we saw another couplet there. So again, lots of activity coming in. Let's make sure we stay safe. More coming, probably more tornado warnings coming, and you know, certainly there's probably damage that has already occurred from some of these across South Florida right now.
That's really unbelievable. I mean, the fact that John Morales is surprised at all the tornadic activity associated with this hurricane, that he hasn't covered something this active, that's correct? Is that a correct statement, John?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I've been on TV in this market for 26 years, and I don't recall ever a hurricane having as many tornadoes as this one has. Now, I mean, there are more tools today that were that there were in 1995 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 2 when Andrew came. So we can detect these with a lot greater ease than we could back 25 years ago. So that's what allows us to issue all these tornado warnings and keep you guys safe. And then of course we have this wonderful tool, which I mean, if you've been watching this coverage for the last 2.5 hours, I believe 2 or 3 times we've actually called for a tornado possibly forming before it was warned upon by the National Weather Service, because we saw it first with a live First Alert Doppler 6000.
And we've been getting a lot of requests from our viewers asking how do we get it again. So once again, Joanne.
Oh, she's no, actually, I'll say it.
Okay, yes, you do it.
No, I mean, you know, just go to your app store and NBC6 News and Weather app, and you know, within there's a weather section, and you can zoom into your neighborhood. It's really, really useful. I'm going to take this opportunity one more time to call out Y100 and WIOD and ask you, why are you not simulcasting like you said you would? Thank you. Back to you.
Okay, we also received some tweets from viewers that were saying, you know, we lost power. We have a battery operated radio.
They're listening to music right now.
And they're playing music right now. But they just retweeted me and said they're back on. So thank you, Y100.
Thank you, Y100.
You're doing a great service for this community, because this is a dangerous situation and people need to know when there's a tornado in their area. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Okay, we're going to check in with NBC6's Adam.
Type of bay that once the water gets in there, it's hard for the water to get out. So you could see a very large storm surge depending on the track of the hurricane as it approaches the coastline. And again, that's expected to be during the course of the day, actually tomorrow night, on Sunday night, as it slides towards the north. Thought I would look at some of the wind gusts going on out there right now. Pompano Beach, you have wind gusts right now at 40 miles per hour. These are just the wind gusts off of our different airports here in South Florida, but we do have a separate list of the peak winds, which include earlier this afternoon gusts to 70 miles per hour at Fort Lauderdale. And as you can see right now, it's gusting at 66 miles per hour in Marathon, 47 miles per hour in Key West. And closer in here, Oakland Park 32, Fort Lauderdale 33, Kendall at Tamiami Airport gust to 31, and it looks like down in Homestead things are even stronger at this hour. Now, let's talk about some analysis here of what's going on with the hurricane right now. And, you know, the eye of the hurricane finally showing signs here of moving off the coast of Cuba. So the west-northwest, actually westerly track for a while, tangled with Cuba, like I said several hours ago before all the tornadoes. the influence of Cuba was a detrimental influence to the strength of the hurricane. And I was surprised myself to have seen it lose about 20% of its wind speed. It went from 160 mile an hour Cat 5 to 120 mile per hour Cat 4. So actually 25% of the wind speed decreased since its peak as it was coming into Cuba. You can see how right now this is definitely starting to move off the coast. Now, remember, these things don't move in a straight line. They tend to zigzag along. So you cannot, I know you see that last little jog to the north. You cannot see that and say, extrapolate it and say it's going to do this. That is highly unlikely to happen and continue on that trend from just that last little frame right there. What will happen is it'll move a little bit to the north, a little bit to the west, a little bit to the north, a little bit to the west, and eventually it should fall somewhere within the forecast cone that the National Hurricane Center has put out there. Meanwhile, let's focus away from the core of the hurricane just a second, and let me show you what caused our tornadoes. Look at this tremendously fierce band, spiral band coming out of the center of Irma, way down here. This is the band that produced all the tornadoes coming here into South Florida. It was just incredible, and again, as Ryan just showed you, there are still numerous strong cells out there, and we're watching for the possibility of any new spin-ups with our First Alert Doppler 6000, which was so valuable during that 2 or 2.5 hour intense period that we had earlier this evening. So here's a close-up of the hurricane. And again, showing that little northward jog over the last couple of frames there, but again, it should probably move in a zigzag generally towards the Keys and keep Metro South Florida out of the core of the storm. Now, I think tonight is a perfect example that when you are on the wrong side of a hurricane, the weather really can go downhill very, very quickly. And with all this tornado activity that we had tonight, I think that's clear to you. Now, we, unfortunately, are going to continue to be on the wrong side of the hurricane for the rest of tonight and throughout the entire day tomorrow. Because as this hurricane tracks towards the northwest, now we're on its northern side. Tomorrow we'll be on its northeastern and eventually eastern side. That entire sector there is the right front quadrant of the hurricane, the most dangerous part of the hurricane, the one with the strongest winds, the heaviest rains, and the most tornado activity. So while the eye of the hurricane, according to the Hurricane Center, would pass, say, 100 miles west of Miami tomorrow during the day, we're still going to be here in these bands on the outer side. And I believe that tropical storm force winds are going to be occurring throughout the day tomorrow in South Florida. And I do believe outside of any other tornado activity, which is very possible tomorrow too, outside of tornadoes, I think our winds are going to gust to hurricane strength, more than likely 75 to 85 miles an hour, similar to what occurred during Hurricane Katrina. But Katrina in Miami-Dade was a direct landfall of a hurricane. Here I'm talking about a hurricane that's 100 miles away and is producing the same winds that Hurricane Katrina produced in Miami-Dade County in the year 2005. And the same winds that Hurricane Wilma produced in Miami-Dade when she made landfall in Everglades City on the southwest coast of Florida also in 2005. Now, Broward, that's a little bit different story because Wilma in Broward produced Category 2 conditions. And those winds were gusting 105, 110 miles an hour. And that is not what I'm forecasting right now for Dade or Broward during the day tomorrow. But we do know that for the lower Florida Keys, not just 110, your winds could easily gust to 170 miles an hour, 170 miles per hour as this hurricane approaches, plus your 10-foot storm surge, plus the risk of tornadoes as well. Speaking of storm surge, and I'm not going to go through all these graphics, but I do want you to realize that the highest risk of storm surge now has definitely shifted to the southwest coast of Florida and to a certain degree down in the Florida Keys. But the highest surge here, expected to reach 15 feet, includes areas from Cape Coral and Fort Myers, down the coast past Marco Island, Naples, and all the way, of course, to the Thousand Islands region of the Everglades City, Chokoloxi Island, and such. And of course, a lot of this, of course, is natural preserve, the Everglades National Park. And it does wrap around, and there are still some pockets. And I'll show this later because otherwise this segment is going to get extremely lengthy. But there are still some pockets in Miami-Dade County that could see 4 to 6 feet of storm surge from this hurricane, as noted in the color table above. So just keep that in mind. We have the risk of a storm surge from this hurricane occurring tomorrow, and we have to check and see what time it arrives in relation to the tides, because the tides, I did mention this yesterday, I believe, or if not the day before yesterday, it's been a long week. The tides this weekend here in South Florida are only 4 inches below the height of the king tide, which is in October next month. So these are some of the highest tides of the year, and if we see the storm surge arrive at the wrong time, then that tide is going to be the highest it can possibly be, more in the 6-foot range instead of the 4-foot range. So definitely something to watch for tomorrow here in South Florida. Jackie and Jawan, I tell you what, I mean, I know that now that Ryan came on, and I needed to brief Ryan as we switched shifts, and Steve McLaughlin, who did an invaluable job, he was here throughout much of the day. He handed the baton to Ryan Phillips. I had to brief Ryan on everything that had been going on, and so I took a little break from the air, but I also took a little break to decompress. I mean, what an intense 2 hours of work with all those tornadoes going on here in South Florida between around 6 and 8 p.m. tonight. That was just incredible.
We were talking about it, and that's the perfect word to describe it. Intense it was. You were coming out every 5 or 10 minutes with a different tornado warning. So kudos to you and to the whole weather department here at NBC6. You guys have done a fantastic job.
You have, man.
And we've received so many tweets, so many emails from viewers that said, you know, thank you for helping to keep us safe and keeping us informed as to what is going on. So thanks again.
Yeah, John, somebody said, why doesn't John take off his jacket? I said, because John is the godfather of weather. I said, John can do whatever he wants to do.
He's got to look good.
I said he could do whatever he could do whatever he wants to do. So no, on a serious note, man, you guys are doing an incredible job. Take a breath, gather yourself. We're gonna take a look at some other areas that are going on across South Florida, because we're gonna need you a few more hours.
Yeah, we are. Just a few.
Just a few more hours, John. Just a few,
Just a few, yeah.
Take a little break. And we also got just a tweet from Miami Police Department that just to reiterate to our viewers and to the community that the curfew is 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And as night sets, they'd like to remind you to be patient, stay indoors, and visibility is close to 0, so dangers can be unseen. And that's something that we don't really think about, is that, you know, when you go out there and it may not seem it's too bad, but there's no visibility, and there could be something, you know.
And Kraus showed it with the flashlight.
Right.
You couldn't even see the down tree over the power line.
Exactly.
Anybody could have just been driving and run straight into that.
He didn't get there.
Definitely, and it's good to see Ari inside after those whipping winds he was out there taking just a short time ago. Okay, we're going to check back in with NBC6 reporter Michael Spears. He is live between Edgewater and Midtown with more on the storm damage out there. Michael?
Okay, apparently we don't have Michael, but we got him?
We got him.
Okay, Michael?
Can you hear me? You got me?
Yes, we got
All right.
you.
Yeah, I want to show you a live look. Let's run that back. I want to show you a live look at a pool where we're taking shelter at this place along Biscayne Bay. You can see the wind's whipping the pool. You'll notice if Blake pans up a little bit, the palm trees and the wind. But I do want to put your attention to the water, the darkness behind there. If we can sort of focus there. Within the last 10 minutes, we've seen some of the Biscayne Bay waters finally cresting, the storm waters pushing up underneath the seawall there against this area, and that's really the concern and what we've been under a storm surge warning, so we've been seeing that over the last couple of minutes or so. The winds over the last hour, 2 hours have been pretty steady as we look at this picture here. We posted a video on Twitter, and a lot of folks were saying, that's not real, that's not real. No, this is what we're seeing here in the Edgewater neighborhood. I want to point you over this way quickly to my right, and I want to show you the street first on the level. We are lucky enough that we have not lost power in this area. We've been listening to other reports from around the metro area, and folks unfortunately have lost power, but
as far as we know, we've kept power. And if you zoom up a little bit, we've shown you this video. We showed it to you live. That crane, it's a red one this time, that is swinging in the wind. There's two of them up there. We've shown you this before earlier in the day, but I want to show you that again. Those cranes are loose. They're swinging in the winds right now. Let's show you some new video. It's more of what we just showed you of the palm tree swing in the wind. But the next shot you'll see is really it's up 30th Street in the city of Miami. 30th and Biscayne Boulevard, you'll see the winds and the rain whipping up the street. And I think part of that effect comes from the fact that we have all of these tall condos here. So not only are we dealing with stronger winds right now than we saw earlier, more intense, especially when these bands of rain and wind come in, but it whips it through the openings of these buildings and makes it much more stronger. Earlier we walked to the seawall. We tried to show you that there. I know it's really dark, but we walked over there, extremely choppy. For the most part, we have seen everyone in this neighborhood, Edgewater, neighborhood of Miami, indoors. There is a curfew in effect right now, took effect 7 p.m., in effect till 7 a.m., in addition to this being a part of Zone C, the mandatory evacuation. So not too many people outside. We did speak to one person this whole time that we've been out here who said when they're indoors, it's extremely quiet in this neighborhood. So folks we've talked to who have sheltered and hunkered down, although they poked their head out a little bit, they say that it is quiet inside and they feel safe. Outside, though, we are seeing these winds, especially at times stronger than others, whipping us around. We've moved down to a lower level. We're sort of in a stairwell, not enclosed stairwell, as you can tell, but blocked by a concrete sort of cement pillar here to kind of block some of the wind from us and keep the rain from smacking us in the face. But as my photographer, if we can take him live again, shows you back towards Biscayne Bay, you can see what would be happening, what I would look like if I was standing right there, just being whipped around by that wind. Those are palm trees, obviously designed for this by Mother Nature, and they're being whipped around. At last check, we have wind gusts right now at 55 miles per hour in this area. So you can tell it's very strong, and we expect this to definitely continue throughout the night and into tomorrow morning. Back to you.
Hey, Michael, I have a quick question on the pool because, you know, we keep looking at the pool. Do you know if the level of the pool was lowered as a result of it? Because it's almost like to the top there.
I do not, and we'll show you the pool one more time as I explain this out. We do not. I will say this, there is a fire alarm going off right now at this building where we've decided to take shelter, and the building manager actually heard one of our live shots watching NBC6's coverage, and it came up to us. We do know this building is not currently occupied, so they're in the process of opening, so that could be, you know, part of the reason why it's a little bit lower than usual, but you can see what the winds are doing to it anyway, sort of whipping it this way, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was a lower just a little bit, Jackie.
And I see meteorologist John Morales making his way out right now, and he has it that 11 p.m. advisory. Okay, John, how about it?
So you guys were hoping for some good news, and we have a little bit of good news here because so far the hurricane maintains winds of 120 miles per hour. This, again, the 11 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center that just now came out. Pressure still 933 millibars. It is moving painfully slow. So while I am going to show you some good news, at the same time, I don't like the fact that it's moving at only 6 miles per hour. And I know you guys have asked several times today, you know, when will it start to accelerate? Well, you know, it has to stop decelerating first before it can accelerate. So it's going to be a while before it accelerates. We need to now monitor exactly how fast this system is going to be moving as it exits Cuba, and you can see here kind of a close-up of the track right now as to you know how it's starting to leave the Cuban coast, but ever so slowly. It is a Cat 3. It has not intensified to a Cat 4 just yet, and on the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center, and I believe that's ready to show it to you on Max 2, you'll see that the hurricane is now expected to approach the lower Florida Keys as a Cat 3. So that's the good news here. No Cat 4 with sustained winds of 140. Instead, Cat 3 with sustained winds of 125. Now, usually we add about 25% to this figure to figure out what the wind gusts are going to be. So let's see, 25, it would be 155 miles an hour approximately, the wind gusts from that 125 mile per hour sustained wind that you're seeing right there. Thank you. Yes, you read my mind. That shows the hurricane. This thing hung around the Cuban coast for so long. You know, I got here at 3:30ish or so. I think I was on the air by 4:30, and you know, it was close to the Cuban coast then. And it's just now, I mean, just now in the last 3 or 4 frames late tonight that we've seen it finally start to move away from the coast. So I think what's going on here is that the interaction with Cuba and the fact that it stayed many more hours than it was forecast to stay close to Cuba has been definitely bad for the Cuban people, but definitely good for the Florida Keys and South Florida in the sense that the hurricane has not had a chance to enter these waters quickly enough and recover quickly enough. Now the Hurricane Center is basically saying, hey, there's not enough time between this point and this point for this hurricane to ramp up from a Cat 3 to a Cat 5 because you spent, you know, it spent 24 hours hanging around in Cuba. So that disruption has certainly been significant. You can see the eye wall there and all the dangers that conveys as this hurricane. We're going to see it get closer and closer to Key West as the night progresses.
Okay.
Okay.
John, thanks.
John, thank you so much.
Well, we're going to go now to Hollywood Beach. David Culver is there, and the wind is so strong, he apparently had to hold onto a bench. Take a look.
Tonight, we are feeling the strongest effects from Hurricane Irma here on the eastern part of South Florida. We are along Hollywood Beach. And as of right now, the one good thing is that this beach still has power, with the winds gusting upwards of 45, 50 miles an hour, and this is only going to intensify as we go through the night and into tomorrow. In fact, the worst of this is not expected until noon Sunday. I can tell you most of the folks here are heeding the warnings. They are staying off the roads. In fact, as we were doing a little bit of driving farther inland, we noticed the only vehicles on the road were police vehicles. Now let me give you an idea of some of the strength of the wind that we're seeing right now. You can see as we look up at some of the palm trees, they are pretty much just all pointing in that westward direction. We're feeling the winds pushing very, very strongly towards the west. As far as the curfew here, been in effect since 4 o'clock. People seeming to oblige by it, staying off the road, staying off the beach, of course, and trying to keep sheltered in place until Irma passes. That's the latest here from Broward County. I'm David Culver. We'll send it back to you.
Take much rain to see some flooding here in South Florida. Stephanie Bertini is live in downtown Miami, and apparently it's already starting to flood there. Stephanie?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, Jackie, let me give you a look at the water here. You can see pretty widespread here in the downtown core of Miami. We're not too far from Bayfront Park. Actually, if we pan over, you kind of see the end of it. We're right in that core. That's Southeast 1st Street. The core of the city doesn't really look like what we're used to, right, on a weekend. But right now, you could see the water and sort of the threat of the water and those storm surges we've been talking about and the meteorologists have been telling us to worry about. And so this kind of speaks to that danger factor, why even though we're not where we were, let's say, days ago where we thought we were going to get a direct hit, it's still a warning, kind of like a message, like we can't let our guard down. And you see here the water, and this is just the beginning, because as things start to worsen, obviously we're going to expect the water levels to rise on the roadways. So what we're doing is trying to pay attention to what's going on around here. This is the first pocket of flooding that we were able to find, but the winds are kind of off and on, and so we're kind of keeping our eye in terms of any possible debris that could be flying around or anything that could happen wind associated. It's been raining off and on right now, just some sprinkles. It's not too wet, but it was raining harder just a little while ago. So that's where some of the water came from, and you can see it's not too high. I'm going to take a walk in it just so you can kind of measure up. I mean, we're not talking about high levels, but you see, you know, my foot is in it. So the water is definitely there. And if this is just the beginning of what to expect, who knows how high the water can go. So that's definitely a concern. Nobody's out here at all. There's no vehicles. We're zooming into Biscayne Boulevard, not too far from the Miami Heat Arena. home of the Miami Heat, the AAA arena. And so basically overall, what we have here is some flooding already. And what we're seeing is a volatile weather situation. Winds pick up, winds die down. It rains hard, rain dies down. And that's kind of what we're dealing with here.
Wow.
Hey, Stephanie, do you know if that area in particular usually gets flooded when there's some rain in the area?
Yeah, Jackie, look, parts of downtown Miami do have that problem. It's an infrastructure problem, and those who are from here know it all too well. In terms of flooding in this area, I was talking actually to someone who works close by, because we're not far from that Intercontinental Hotel where we were live just a short while ago, and they were saying they haven't seen flooding in this particular spot. As far as they can remember, they haven't seen this type of flooding where it's kind of really widespread here. Now, something happening on the roads down here. They're kind of, this is just south of Flagler, right? So they've been doing some reworking of the roads here. This area didn't look like this just a little while ago. This is a new construction project to help the flow of traffic down here. And I know that just because I also cover traffic here. And so I'm not sure if this might have something to do with the work they've been doing out here. But look, you know, downtown Miami, construction project after construction project. Cranes are up all over the downtown core of Miami. There's construction, road construction, every area basically. As you drive down Biscayne, you can spot it. And so this is another problem. I think Michael Spears touched on it when he was live earlier. This is another problem that kind of factors into the unpredictability, the unpredictable factor there, right?
Before I came to air, and this is a great example of how fast these showers are moving. Just moments ago, I tracked this band just off to the south where this box begins, and it's already racing to the north. And so all the cities that I plotted out along the way have been taken off the list, because why? This band has already come through. 11:27, well, that's right now. 11:27, looking for this to be inbound into Pompano Beach. Very accurate. First alert Doppler 6000. Again, watching these showers sweep in. We'll just back out so you get an idea of the evolution of this. Look at this cluster just coming together and sweeping through, expanding across eastern Broward County. Here's what we'll watch next. Some 8 to 10 miles offshore. That's cooking along right now, and I think we'll easily see 40-mile-per-hour gusts there. So as these continue to stack up just offshore, we'll watch for them to come into play, bringing in the gusty winds and more wet weather. So it looks like our brief lull in the dry weather, it's over, and more rain sweeping in. First alert Doppler 6000 extending out. We're going out about 120 miles right now, but let's just shift down and look at the entire mosaic. Again, watching the eye slowly emerging, and really the emphasis here is on slow. Now, as the system is slow, what's it doing? Well, the winds are wrapping around, and we're just continuing to build that push of water that will head up to the Keys as the center circulation draws off to the north overnight tonight, with a potential landfall early on Sunday morning, perhaps between 6 and 8 a.m. Widening out, a reminder of the tornado watch, which is still in effect for another half hour. And we'll be on top of that to see if that is extended into the overnight hours. We'll see what the Storm Prediction Center has to say about that. National Hurricane Center, you see how many agencies we have on top of this system, keeping an eye on every different parameter of it. But back to the National Hurricane Center, winds at 120 miles per hour. One interesting thing they said was that they didn't have the full suite of data coming back from the hurricane hunters, and once they have that, they would decide kind of which way they were looking at, and we'll see this reflected in either the 2 a.m. Well, no, actually we're into hourly updates now. We'll see if there's any adjustment to that as the system's a little bit closer to Key West, because they felt that at least at this intensity, it was rather conservative. The storm may be just a touch weaker than this. But again, don't let that throw you, because there still will be an opportunity for some intensification if Irma can pull herself together as she's pulling away from Cuba and running through the straits. Again, it goes back to those eye wall replacement cycles that we've talked about for the last several days, where kind of the internal structure gets replaced within the eye. And if the center of circulation kind of goes through a rebuilding period, we've got an opportunity, a window for some intensification. But the official forecast right now, by tomorrow morning, a Category 3, a major hurricane sweeping into the lower Keys. And again, with radar, with satellite, we will walk the system in to see where that destructive center of circulation goes. Don't let it throw you that we've gone from a 5 to a 4 to a 3. because as we know, Hurricane Wilma made landfall as Category 3 in Cape Romano in October of 2005 over here. The trajectory was coming from the southwest. But if we're going to sweep a Category 3 up the Florida West Coast, that's going to be a tough go. Massive, just a massive wind field, guys, and I'll finish up with this. That center of circulation will be out in the Gulf, but we still have a lot more wind to come. So maybe today for some was just like, hey, what's the big deal? This evening was like, well, yeah, it's raining. We got some gusty winds. The weather will continue to head on downhill overnight tonight by daybreak tomorrow. And we're still into the thick of this, Jackie and Juwan, through the day on Sunday. We're going to be on top of it. The gusty winds and the rains, they will continue. We're going to talk more about the rains next hour. That'll come into play starting overnight tonight into tomorrow.
All right, Adam, a quick question. Adam, okay.
Hey, there's a lot of us here.
Yeah, exactly. Ryan, because I'm tossing to Adam in a minute. But Ryan, quick question here for you. The eye wall, do you know how big the eye wall is?
You know what? Rather than giving bad information, I'll go look.
Okay.
And I'll check into that.
Okay.
I would estimate it's somewhere between probably, well, why estimate? But maybe 36 to 42 miles.
No, and the reason why I'm asking you this, and I didn't mean to put you on a spot there. The reason why I'm asking is because before it was so large.
Yes.
And then it shrunk a little bit. And I didn't know just how big it was, because I remember John Morales talking about how large the eye wall was with Wilma. And so I was just trying to get an idea. So aside from that, and I think Angie's trying to answer that.
Oh, okay, great information. Okay, well, and if you can find the diameter of the eye, Angie, I'd appreciate that. The eye size does matter. And, you know, as these storms get stronger, then we just took a power hit here.
Yeah,
we'll
we did.
assume that we're still broadcasting. With that, there'll be a constriction of the eye wall. And so we'll look for that when the storm's getting a little bit stronger.
And if it, and Jackie,
even if it's wider, though.
Right.
I think the professor's going to chime in.
Okay.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about, actually, but I'm here because...
Come on in.
Yeah, I'll come on in. So I've got good news. The storm surge warning for Broward County has just been lifted, and I think that's very relevant,
very relevant.
As you know, the storm surge forecast is only 2 to 4 feet, and now with the hurricane slightly weaker and slightly down towards the lower Florida Keys, that has been lifted. So the hurricane warning remains in effect, but the storm surge warning for Broward County has been discontinued, and I thought it was important enough to bring that to you now.
Well, we were having this lengthy discussion about the eye size and how that matters, even though we had Wilma as such a large eye in 2005. And briefly yesterday, we were looking at maybe a 40-mile wide eye with Irma.
Even bigger, 46, I read.
46.
From what I recall,
and so now we're into a situation where the eye is a little bit smaller, but the overall structure of the storm isn't quite as robust as it was.
Near the core.
Correct.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, so it appears to be going through a process of an eye wall replacement cycle. So that's it's got concentric eyes. That's one thing that's going on. Obviously, interaction with Cuba. They said it again in their 11 p.m. discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember yesterday when the Hurricane Center in their technical discussion, they go, apparently the high pressure ridge in the Atlantic was stronger than anticipated.
Yeah.
And boy, was it ever.
Sure.
Because it stayed close to the Cuban coast for so long. Even deep into tonight, and Cuba really helped diminish the intensity and affect the overall, like you're just saying, the overall structure of the system as it stands right now. The eye it's kind of a dirty eye when you look at it. It's got an outer one, it's got an inner one. You can see it behind the anchors there on their. If they punch up,
well, here, we'll just back up the graphics here.
There we go. Yeah,
there we go.
So I mean, you see the.
This is kind of weird, isn't it?
This is extremely.
There's no one on the other side when we're looking.
I cannot do this because I can't see what I'm doing. Get out of the way. No,
but honestly, point it out. No, really.
I mean, you see Doppler 6000 before the warnings from the National Weather Service came out.
Right.
So that was quite the 2 hours.
Well, and we saw a preview this evening of the potential for the strong winds to come in and maybe some brief spin-ups. But just because the storm may be nudging a little bit further off to the west, it's going to move through the lower Keys. It won't diminish impacts that we are still anticipating tomorrow.
Here?
No,
absolutely
no.
not.
And I think folks.
And that's the message I'm trying to convey. I
Yeah.
mean, you see how far removed we are from the eye, and yet we saw what happened tonight. We will continue to be on the dirty side, on the active side of this hurricane the rest of tonight and throughout the day tomorrow. As I told folks, you know what? It's barely started to rain yet. I know it's been coming down sideways and in buckets in many spots, but the heavy rain is going to continue throughout the day tomorrow, and we're going to end up with more than a foot of rain in much of South Florida. That's going to lead to floods in addition to the storm surge at the coast. Again, Broward, warning over for storm surge. Dade, you're still in a storm surge warning, as obviously are the Florida Keys. So water a big issue tomorrow, tornado spin-ups as well, and of course, the winds, the tropical storm force winds gusting to hurricane force in the metro area, and the incredible winds gusting to 155 miles per hour in the lower Florida.
Right. I'm going to let you sign off before you take your break. How about that?
Now, folks, listen, you know, we continue on track for Hurricane I that is not going to strike the metro area. I mean, you already, I think early this afternoon when I came in, I came on the air and I told you, listen, it's past our longitude. This thing is not going to, you know, either make a sharp right and come up our way, or, you know, loop around and recurve and come into the metro area. So we know that's not an issue anymore. We're not going to see in the metro area the real destruction of a hurricane, which is that eye wall. This ring here is the one that must be avoided at all costs. It's the ring that, in the case of Hurricane Andrew, flattened everything from Kendall Drive down south to Florida City. So if we can avoid this, we're going to be good, and obviously at this stage we are going to avoid that. But we're not going to avoid all these bands, that crazy band with all the tornadoes. It's this one right here. There it goes. It's way up there now. It's near Lake Okeechobee. Actually, it's past Lake Okeechobee, nearing the Space Coast. This was the band with all the tornadoes. Here's another weaker band. This one is kind of weaker this evening, but we still have this one and this one, because the eye of the hurricane will be over here, but we'll still be seeing some of these bands that are right here rotating into South Florida. We've got a long way to go. That's why I'm going to take this 2 or 3 hour nap, come back for landfall in the lower Florida Keys. Stay with you throughout the day tomorrow until this thing is north of our latitude and moving away. So it's going to be a long day tomorrow, and we'll keep you guys obviously as well informed as you can possibly be.
Now we have some more numbers to update you on the power outages. More than 106,000 people in Miami-Dade County are now without power. In Broward County, that number is just over 63,000, and there are more than 22,000 outages in Palm Beach County. This includes homes and businesses alike. A lot of numbers, but the FPL has asked all of us to be patient, because as soon as the storm passes, they are going to be on it.
We want to head over to Dan Krauth, one of the many reporters that we have scattered across South Florida. And again, we are just joining you at 2:07 in the morning, so we appreciate you being with us. Hey, Dan, you're in Miami Beach. How are things looking there? Heavy flooding, I can imagine.
Shelly, good morning to you. Things are pretty nasty here on Miami Beach. A lot of strong wind gusts. And as you can see here, a lot of flooding. Believe it or not, I'm walking up 31st Street right near Collins. The street looks like a river. You can see how far it goes up here to my boots. And it's not just 31st Street, it's 32nd, it's 33rd, it's also 34th Street. And the water levels are rising, and I can tell you, it's also getting a pretty strong current as I'm walking against it. Right here is the Belimar Hotel, and Thomas here is the night manager. Let me step up on the curb here. Thomas, good morning.
Morning.
What's going through your mind as you see these waters rise and your hotel's right here?
Well, actually, I feel pretty calm now. I thought that it might have been a little worse, that it was going to come a little stronger. So I'm just staying in faith, you know, and I'm here to help and serve the people staying that didn't want to evacuate.
Do you have people here from other parts of the area that are staying here because they had nowhere else to go?
Yes, most of the people that are staying here because they have no other place to go. They're mainly poor people, and they're actually just waiting and sticking it out.
And we ventured away from where we've been sort of hunkered down to show you exactly what we're talking about. These waves have even grown over the last 2 hours or so as we get splashed here, completely spilling over the seawall right here. Miami-Dade great concern for storm surge. Has been under a storm surge warning, although the threat, according to our meteorologist at NBC6, has diminished for Broward. We're seeing just the water, and we have protection out there. Miami Beach is out in the distance. It's obviously too dark to show you right now, but that is a barrier island, and we still have all of this spraying over at us. So gives you an idea of the intensity of the winds and how much they've been building throughout the day when you see some of the video of what it looked like just a few hours ago. Beyond the choppy surf, look at that, incredible. Beyond the choppy surf, the winds, they've come and gone in intensity, but it's been fairly consistent and constant over the last several hours. Definitely expect this to get worse into the night and early morning hours. Reporting in Miami, I'm Michael Spears. Back to you.
Michael, thank you.
All right, and quite clearly, yesterday afternoon, those models really started taking things to the west. They started pushing things to the west, and so that we knew that the west coast of Florida was going to come much more into play than we were on the east coast of Florida, which was
into First Alert Doppler 6000. Again, I want to give you an idea while we're removing ourselves from that center of circulation. We've set the radius of our radar at 125 miles. Normally we could see out 300 miles if we want to, but in order to get a better detection as to what's going on here in South Florida, we decrease the range in which the radar is looking, and therefore we've increased the sensitivity and how the Doppler is listening for what's out there. Let's get in here. And eastern Broward County, northeastern Miami-Dade. I just tweeted this out. And now we're finding that blanket of steady rain, and with that will come the wind gusts. So I imagine as our producers figure out where we're going next, we check in with any reporter here underneath these reflectivity values that are into the yellow and into the orange. We're going to end up finding, some really nasty conditions. I just want to, Ryan, we'll get to that in just a minute. Davey, sunrise here. Your approach times, Davey, at about 3:38, and sunrise about 3:43. These storms are moving quick, gusty winds, heavy rains. Okay, we're going to go out live now. I think to Hollywood Beach. This is Chris Hush. Chris, you with us there? What do you got?
Hey, Ryan. Yeah, so we're actually at Fort Lauderdale Beach, and you were speaking about wind gusts. Well, 15 minutes ago, when I was talking to Shelly and Eric, I told you that we had wind gusts around 36 miles an hour. Well, I checked my gauge again. 45 miles an hour. Just before we went on live, I checked, and we had a gust of 45 miles an hour. Sustained, we're around 35 miles an hour. And if you can turn the camera to our headlights just to give you a better idea of how this rain is falling, sideways all over the place. I mean, the wind has picked up incredibly here. Absolutely incredible. If you can look down the street, Jeff, I don't know if you can see that. We do have some palms that have fallen. Look at this rain. Just look at the rain. I hope you guys can see that. I mean, and it hurts. It's pelting us. There's even sand in the street. And before, when we were doing our live shot about 15 minutes ago, we were actually closer to the beach. We moved a little bit away. This is A1A, by the way. There is sand in the middle of A1A. So it was picked up from the beach and thrown here. The rain is just coming down relentless. So we were talking about the bands that come in, and this is what happens. We see these strong bands, you know, maybe an hour ago, I'll say, it was not coming down like this at all. It was a completely different story. In fact, I thought I could dry off maybe a little bit just because it was more of a wind situation, not rain. But the rain is coming down here. The wind is coming down. And we were also talking about how, you know, we're all in town to help NBC6. We're all from all over the country. We're from Chicago. We're from the Windy City. So we're used to the wind, right? Nothing like this, though. Maybe with a little bit of snow, but not the rain. This is the situation here at Fort Lauderdale Beach. I'm Chris Hush. Back to you in the studio unless you have any questions for me.
No, Chris, I'm just wondering, I didn't catch your location. I know you're in Fort Lauderdale Beach. Do you know any of your cross streets or your approximate location? Are you a step back there from A1A on the side streets?
You know what? I can tell you this. A1A, I'm at the Fort Lauderdale Beach parking lot. See the sign right here. I don't have a cross street for you. I wish I could see one. I don't.
No.
But this is the Fort Lauderdale Beach Park.
Okay, good stuff. We got a great idea where you are. And obviously, no one's around. Chris, thank you very much. Speaking of the wind and the Windy City, Chris from NBC5 in Chicago helping us out. any time now as we go through the overnight hours and you're seeing all of our reporters live in the field and the photographers cut away and you see the raindrops riding through. It's interesting because, you know, the wind obviously is just in constant motion, and those raindrops kind of act as a tracer to give you an idea of how ferocious the wind is. And fog is another great example. The moisture droplets kind of follow the air movement. And in our case, in a tropical situation, those big raindrops follow the air movement. So you get a good idea of just how fast the wind is blowing by looking at seeing all the rain move across your screen there. Taking it back in on First Alert Doppler 6000, again underneath these areas in orange and yellow, that's where we're seeing the really gusty winds. So if you're just watching Chris's report from Fort Lauderdale Beach and you're out in Melrose Park or you're down in Dania Beach, you too are seeing the exact same conditions here. So these gusty winds coming in with the heavy rains. And again, we're getting into a more consolidated, widespread blanket rain as we anticipated. So here's where we start to watch the rain totals. Angie last one just showed you a quick 2¼ inches or so in Key West.
Certainly kicking up a whole heck of a lot in Florida City. We just had a blackout, and then it came back on. We're grateful for that, but we know why that's happening. The wind just whipping. Whoa, if we could look at that stop sign as it's just kind of spinning around, I could see that, the one across the street and also in other places as well. So let's look up though at that palm tree, these 2 palm trees, man, we're watching for these to possibly go down, because things are just getting very severe. This is the fiercest winds we've seen so far, at least this morning. And listening to that howling coming through, we've been watching branches all along the US 1 here coming down. Lots of debris all around. No major damage that we've seen so far to buildings. We're being very careful right now to be under the overhang of a building. We're on a side of it that's on the west side, so the wind not hitting us directly here, just to give us a little bit more protection because things are getting so severe. I do want to let you know, I spoke to a man who's taking shelter right here sleeping. I said, listen, this is not a safe place to be. He told me he doesn't want to go. He didn't want to go to a shelter. He said, I did let first responders know that he's here just in case of anything. Other than that, we haven't seen anyone out on the street, and we're grateful for that. Again, yes, we are here to bring you the story, but we want you to stay safe inside, and we are doing this as safely as possible. What the story has been for us, while you saw some sideways rain when we were talking to you earlier, now it's just the wind. And of course, with at least 10 tornado warnings overnight, most of that, though, to the north of us, we are very mindful that anything can happen at any moment. And when our phones go off with those buzzings, we're very, very careful and very attentive to this. But boy, guys, we've just seen a lot of power going out. We're thankful. I mean, right before I started talking to you, Ryan, the power came back on here. But when we spoke with Eric and Shelley earlier, we were further south along US 1, kind of at that last stop before you hit the overseas highway. It blacked out all of there. There are also street lights that are out. Let me check on this one. I think it was still on. It is. That's good news. But again, thankfully, people are not out on the road, so you don't have to worry too much about that. But wow, let me just pause so you can listen to this for a moment. Also, a short while ago, we saw Florida City Police on patrol in a Humvee, so a military vehicle that they're using to be on patrol. Wow, listen to that. We're being very careful to watch for projectiles. We've seen a lot of things unsecured, everything from garbage cans to just big rocks, anything that could go flying. That's something that, of course, when it gets so dark, that it's hard to watch out for at this hour. But certainly, we're going to go ahead and take some more shelter now as this is kicking up, and then we'll try to check in with you guys, show you what else is going on here. Now, Eric.
Coming.
Flood warning.
Flood warning where? Let's see. We are
4:45 p.m. today.
Okay. So this is pretty widespread. Thank you, Angie. flood warning for urban areas and small streams, and this is all encompassing. Hang with me for a minute, because this includes almost all of South Florida, beyond just the immediate southeast coast. Collier County flood warning, mainland Monroe County flood warning, Miami-Dade, Broward, Henry. This is until 4:40. So this is for 12 hours. I guess we're waiting for that to populate, right, Angie? So this goes into effect. The bottom line here is that we're monitoring trends. There we go. Boy, that's a much better illustration. Again, this is a flood warning, and this is due in part to the estimate that in some locations we've had already 6 to 8 inches of rain falling
in place, and in fact some of them still are in place until 7 o'clock this morning.
So we are standing by for that 5 o'clock advisory to come out any moment. We have John Morales who's here, we have Ryan Phillips, and we have Angie Lastman. Every time somebody comes out of the Weather Center, I think of,
right.
No, we're good. Okay.
Somebody comes walking towards us and we think
immediately think it's the advisory,
go, right? Yeah.
Right.
All right.
But I just want to remind you, September 10th, peak hurricane season. It's what's considered.
Yeah.
So, you know, hurricane season runs from June to November. We're in the thick of it right now.
Boy, did we ever fall. Right in. When you look at the graph of hurricanes commonly happening, we are sitting right within this 8-day window of when they're the highest intensity and the highest probability of getting a storm like this actually follows
I feel like
through.
they're about to come out any minute.
So yeah, usually with these advisories, especially with these big advisories that come out at 11 o'clock and 5 o'clock, they usually come out sometimes up to 10 minutes earlier than the top of the hour. So certainly that's what we're waiting on right now.
John, are you heading about to... You ready for us now? Or you
All right, so let's get you over to Chief Meteorologist John Morales with more on that. Hi, John.
Yeah, so we're awaiting the 5 a.m. advisory, but I want to do some analysis here of what's going on. And folks, this is not a good situation. And if you're listening to us or still watching in the Florida Keys, you need to hunker down because the worst is yet to come, and we've got an intensifying hurricane. Sadly, this hurricane's central pressure is dropping quickly. The pressure has dropped since I went to take my nap and came back so I left about 3.5 hours ago and came back, and the pressure has dropped 6 millibars since I left. And when you look at this image, and now I'm utilizing the Key West National Weather Service radar, look at the so Ryan, can you slide this up just a little bit so we can get it closer to the center of the screen? I want to show folks how this eye is behaving, thanks, over the last 3 hours. This is a 3-hour loop. Watch the last hour, especially of the loop. You're going to notice that the eye is shrinking in size. This eye is becoming a smaller eye. Winds are spinning around faster and faster closer to the center. So while the winds are 130 miles per hour as of the 2 a.m. advisory, at the 5 a.m. advisory, they could be stronger. And by the time this makes landfall around 7 o'clock or so, it could be even stronger. Now, I'm not necessarily calling for a Cat 5 hurricane here. I think at this point, whether it's a Cat 5 or a strong Cat 4 is really a moot point. But what I'm trying to tell you is that this is just an absolute beast of a hurricane, which unfortunately, in its crossing of the Florida Straits from the Cuban coast heading towards the lower Florida Keys, is rapidly intensifying. And this area here, this eye wall, is just the worst part of this hurricane. The one that has those winds sustained above, I'm going to say above 130 miles an hour, because I'm considering this hurricane as one that will be stronger than currently being advised upon on the bulletins from the National Hurricane Center. And the gusts, therefore, will reach 150 to 160 miles an hour. And here's the other bad part as we analyze the Key West National Weather Service radar. It really looks like this is going to go right into the middle portion of the Florida Keys. There's a couple of wobbles here, slightly to the north, slightly to the left, but generally speaking, this is headed towards, I think, towards the middle portion of the Florida Keys. And that means that all of the lower Florida Keys are going to get the wall that surrounds the eye of the hurricane. So, for example, had it crossed here over the Dry Tortugas, yes, it would have been really bad for Key West, for Boca Chica, for the lowest portion of the lower Florida Keys. But now that it's headed towards kind of the middle portion of the low Keys, then everybody gets it. Everybody gets the worst, fiercest part of this hurricane. So, some recommendations for you down in the lower Keys. Again, the worst is yet to come. You need to move to an interior room away from windows, wherever you're sheltered in place. Keep your footwear on. In case you need to flee, this situation is going to be very volatile. There's going to be a lot of debris around. Keep your footwear on. Gather blankets, gather pillows, take a mattress if you need to wherever you're sheltering in place. If you have a bicycle helmet, put that on because these are the type of winds that you see in those, infamous tornadoes from Oklahoma. I mean, where everything is flying and homes are being flattened by the wind. Again, you needed to have left, but if you're still there, you're still there, you need to hunker down. Again, in the next 2 hours, this eye wall is going to approach you. Okay, the 5 a.m. advisory is in, and for now, the winds stay at 130 miles per hour, but the pressure is down to 928 millibars. Movement northwest, 8 miles per hour, and at 24.1 and 81.5 degrees west, it is a hurricane that's getting closer and closer to the Florida Keys to make landfall in the next 2 or 3 hours in that area. We're expecting that as it continues to move towards the northwest, obviously we are now really within just a couple of hours of landfall. So in relation to our viewing area, which is Broward, Miami-Dade, and the Florida Keys, showing you a cone of concern is not all too relevant at this moment, but I'm going to show it to you anyway, and I think we can switch to that, yes, on Max 2, and there it is, National Hurricane Center with the hurricane heading right, it looks like just to the east. If you drew a center line here, looks like it would be just to the east of Key West, so that, I repeat, the entire low Florida Keys below the 7 Mile Bridge will get the eye wall of this hurricane and the worst part of it. I do expect, even though this says 130 miles per hour, there is a chance that between here and here, this hurricane will ramp up, get to 135 sustain, who knows, maybe 140 sustain. If it ramps down again by the time it gets over here, that's possible too. But just looking at short-term trends, this hurricane definitely looks like it's intensifying with a diminishing diameter of the eye wall, of the eye's diameter rather, and then the eye wall looking so strong on the radar. So beyond the lower Florida Keys, this track is really bad in terms of surge for all these regions. It keeps the hurricane just offshore and very close to the coast. So we've got water piling up into the Marco Island area, into Everglades City, into Naples, into Port Charlotte, beyond that Sarasota, and then eventually, look at this, really bad track in relation to Tampa.
Guys, it's very windy out here right now. I hope you can hear me. I can barely hear myself at this point. We are right on Ocean Drive and South Point Drive. You can see what happened here right behind me because of these very powerful wind gusts right now. We're seeing full-size palm trees completely blocking Ocean Drive at this moment. You see those two that are down right now. The trunks were actually being reinforced by these wooden planks, and we see 3 are still standing. I don't know for how much longer at this point. So right now we are trying to keep our distance. The good part is that we have been driving up and down Ocean Drive. We haven't seen anybody else out here but other journalists just like ourselves who are also trying to take every safety precaution possible to be out here right now. You might not be able to see it on camera, but we are standing right next to our vehicle. We placed it against the wind to try to make sure that we have any objects flying straight at us. The problem is that the wind right now is actually shifting directions. We have some very strong gusts coming directly from the ocean. Then we're seeing other wind gusts coming down from the north side, possibly a wind tunnel effect right now between the buildings lining Ocean Drive. So again, we haven't seen anybody else out here. These are not conditions you want to be in right now. We haven't even seen police out here besides the only first responders we have seen were fire rescue a little while ago when a large tree fell on top of a house and it caused some sparks because it brought down some power lines with it.
Boreas?
No, I just want to point out the following. I mean, you guys are discussing this situation. Excuse me, sorry, trying to finish a breakfast here. What we've done is we've placed this First Alert Doppler 6000 in tornado surveillance mode, if you want to look at it that way. And this tornado surveillance mode actually does extend down into the Florida Keys too. But we have the advantage of, in addition to that, tapping into the National Weather Service radar out of Key West. So we're tracking the eye of the hurricane with the Key West radar, which is closest to that eye right now. But I mean, we saw the advantage last night of the First Alert Doppler 6000 so incredibly detecting tornadic activity before it was even warned on. We were doing that, and I think it was a tremendous advantage to keep people safe last night. So we're keeping our radar in that tornado surveillance mode. It does cover the Florida Keys, but for looking at the eye of the hurricane, we're going to use the National Weather Service radar for really probably the next several hours until this eye passes through. I'll take advantage of the fact that this is on screen right now just to remind folks down in the lower Florida Keys, the worst of this hurricane is yet to come, and it is going to spin up very, very quickly. So I know the winds are howling out there already, but they are about to ramp up by an order of magnitude beyond belief. So, you know, your winds right now, who knows, probably 80, 90 miles per hour, but they're about to get into the 130 to 160 mile per hour range very quickly. It's 6:23 right now, and probably by 7 o'clock, you're going to have this eye wall starting to make its way into the lower Florida Keys. Hunker down, bicycle helmets on, shoes on, mattresses, you need them to protect yourself, interior room of the house, away from windows, blankets, pillows, whatever you need. You know, I hope and pray that you guys left, but whoever's left down there in the Keys watching or listening right now, you really need to be very careful. This is imminent. It's heading your way. You're going to get through this eye wall. Eventually you'll fall inside the eye of the hurricane. There's a lot of water coming on shore too. So the depth of the storm surge likely to be, with this buzzsaw of a hurricane, 10 feet deep. Few survive storm surges. So this is a very, very, very serious situation. And in the Florida Keys, you need to watch out because it's about to get very, very bad for you. Back to you guys.
All right, John, thank you so much. So if you don't know already, southernmost point,
because it is worrisome, and that's back out here in Brickell. You know, I'll just be keeping, we're going to go inside, actually, because of the wind. It's knocking us off our feet. So we're going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
That's what we want. We don't want her to be out there in those elements. So Amanda Placencia live there in Brickell, taking shelter when conditions really...
We need everything.
Cammie Clark, you are a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much. It looks like your teams are ready to go.
Yeah,
we are.
And please, from all of us here at NBC6, be safe, Cammie, through this storm, okay?
Thank you.
All right, hope to talk to you again.
John, to hear these people that are actually still there because the storm, the track kept changing, and you have somebody who are riding out storm, some people on a boat?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm really sorry to hear that because, you know, we did it here. I then sent it out on social media. I mean, there's a 1-minute segment here during our wall-to-wall coverage where I implored, I almost begged people to get out of the Florida Keys because of this. And so I've got my hand out here. I just want to make sure I don't miss any of the keys that are starting to see the eye wall arrive at this moment. So, you know, we had that, and I don't know if it was Skype or actual live video, but we had that video out of Key West. But, you know, actually in Key West, things aren't that bad. I mean, they're bad, okay? And you just saw that video and you know how the wind is blowing down there. But compared to what's going on in the rest of the lower Florida Keys, you haven't seen the worst of it yet in West. So let's zoom in here. The eye wall is arriving. This is the worst of the hurricane. It's coming in right now as we speak at 6:44 a.m. Into the lower Florida Keys. So from Bahia Honda State Park, you know that beautiful beach down there, Bahia Honda to Big Pine Key, past Little Torch Key, and actually all the Middle Torch Key, Big Torch, all that area, you are seeing the eye of the hurricane, the eye wall of the hurricane arrive right now. Summerlin Key down to Cudjoe Key as well, which is this one here. Sugarloaf Key down to the Saddle Bunch Keys, including lower Sugarloaf Key, and down closer to Key West. We've got a Big Coppet Key, Geiger Key, and the U.S. Naval Station, which is located in Boca Chica. So there's just an immense portion of the lower Florida Keys that are just now starting to see what's considered to be the worst part of this Category 4, 130 mile per hour sustained wind hurricane with gusts that are likely going to be to 160 miles per hour. Thankfully, in our last interview with the National Hurricane Center, we learned that the barometric pressure inside the eye of the hurricane had stabilized, and it's now 929 millibars, and it appears that this is not going to intensify any further, and what you're getting right now is what you're going to get, which is just a horrible situation. Again, storm surge, 10 feet high more than likely, coming up into the lower Florida Keys right now, particularly the ones up in this area. And then as this eye moves through, looks like the eye is going to move passing east or northeast of Key West. So Key West, you're about to get the northwestern eye wall, and then you'll be sitting here on the western side of the eye as it slides through the lower Florida Keys over the next hour or so. And then once it's past Key West, expect all the wind coming in from the north and then northwest to drive water into Key West, and the inundation there is also going to be 5 to 10 feet high. So we're talking about 5 to 10 feet of storm surge, hardly survivable by many, and certainly the winds at a buzzsaw, and this is just driving rain, incredible amounts of rain happening right now as the eye is imminently arriving in the Florida Keys. The eye wall is there. When the center of this eye, when the center of the eye actually crosses one of the keys, that's when we'll have the official landfall here in the United States of America of this Irma hurricane, which will go down in history as one of the strongest ones to affect our country. Again, landfalling hurricane in the Florida Keys right now. I also wanted to point out that our First Alert Doppler 6000 indeed picks up very well on the eye of the hurricane, but we have it on this short range mode because of all the tornadic activity we've had, trying to make sure that we keep people safe across the upper Florida Keys and into Miami in Broward County. So we can see the eye on the First Alert Doppler 6000, but it's been very important for us to continue to monitor what's going coming in from the east and southeast constantly, raking parts of Miami-Dade and Broward County. So we'll keep that in that surveillance mode for tornadoes and big pockets of heavy rain and gusty winds, but we'll continue to watch for the development of the eye, which again is arriving now down in the lower Florida Keys. Landfall is imminent. Back to you.
All right, John, thank you. Appreciate that. 6:47 is the time right now.